Chapter 33:53. Sorcerer Tribe, Sacred Lord Myrtle Star, watched as the yang-tongued combination took Zhuowen away. His gaze was calm as he muttered to himself, "I didn't expect that in the end I still had to use the most helpless method. It's all because I'm too weak." As he spoke, Myrtle Star opened his right hand. On his right palm, an insignificant speck of dust lay quietly. After putting away the speck of dust, Myrtle Star strode into the inn. "Brother Inma, are we going to let Zixing go just like that?" Zixing was able to obtain one of the 12 spots in the Sorcerer Song Conference. "I'm afraid he's not simple. After all, he was born in a small clan. To be able to rise in the Sorcerer Song Conference, he's definitely not simple," Yongshi, the leader of the Merman tribe, said in a deep voice. Corpse Inma shook his head and said, "We're still in the Sorcerer God City. It's not appropriate for us to make a move. After all, the defensive formation that Zhuowen left behind is not simple. We won't be able to break it in a short period of time. When the time comes, the Sorcerer Tribe might make a move." Brother Inma is right. We can't touch Zixing now. After leaving the Sorcerer God City, the Sorcerer Tribe won't interfere anymore. We'll make a move then. Feng Lilua said, "Emam, let's go to the inner city. Since Long Wen was brought into the inner city, Wu Wuxian will definitely appear. Let's have a good talk with Wu Wuxian about the distribution of the spoils." Corpse Inma looked in the direction of the inner city and said coldly, "In the inner city, in the Sorcerer Tribe's main hall, two figures sat opposite each other in a very spacious room. The dome of the room was open air. The people sitting in the room only needed to raise their heads to see the stars in the night sky. One of the two figures was the Sorcerer Tribe's Sacred Lord. He was also one of the top experts in the entire Eldritch Heaven domain. It was said that the Sorcerer Tribe's Sacred Lord's cultivation had reached the peak of the heaven-reaching Master Realm. His strength was monstrous, and he intimidated the universe. In front of the Sorcerer Tribe's Sacred Lord, Corpse Inma and a group of late-stage heaven-reaching masters were completely useless. They were as insignificant as ants. But now, the Holy Master of the Sorcerer Tribe, who stood at the peak of the primitive heavenly realm, was sitting upright and still looking at the figure sitting opposite him with fear. This figure sat casually with a bare upper body. It was actually as thin as a match, and its skin was dry and shriveled. It was like a dried corpse, and there were actually tufts of green hair growing on this dried corpse. It was neither human nor ghost, and it was extremely strange. If Zhuowen was here, he would definitely recognize this figure. It was the green-furred corpse that he had released from the seal. "Senior, you've been sitting here for several days. May I know what you're here for?" The Saint Lord of the Sorcerer Tribe asked carefully. Back then, this green-furred mummy had appeared in his bedroom like a ghost. At that time, he was furious and brazenly attacked. However, he was knocked down to the ground by this green-furred corpse with a single move, and his battle prowess temporarily dissipated. This made him inexplicably shocked. He knew that this green-furred mummy's strength was far greater than his, so he was both shocked and afraid of this green-furred mummy. He did not dare to be negligent in any way. What made the Saint Lord of the Sorcerer Tribe feel even more strange was that after the green-furred mummy had taught him a lesson, it had only sat there motionlessly like a stone statue. Although this green-furred mummy was like a mummy, when it was motionless, the Saint Lord of the Sorcerer Tribe did not dare to leave. Who knew if this green-haired mummy would suddenly come back to life and attack him, directly killing him? "I heard that your Sorcerer Tribe has 3 ancestor sorcerer corpses. Is that true?" The green-furred mummy suddenly opened its eyes and looked at the Saint Lord of the Sorcerer Tribe calmly. "Yes. Senior, may I know why you mentioned this?" The Saint Lord of the Sorcerer Tribe felt his scalp go numb as he asked, Hee. I want those 3 ancestor sorcerer corpses. The green-furred mummy said calmly. What? The Saint Lord of the Sorcerer Tribe's expression changed abruptly. What? Do you have a problem with that? The green-furred mummy looked at the Saint Lord of the Sorcerer Tribe unkindly. The Saint Lord of the Sorcerer Tribe fell silent, and his eyes were filled with unwillingness. Senior, those 3 ancestor sorcerer corpses were passed down from our ancestors. You must not touch them. If you touch them, the Sorcerer Tribe will be in big trouble. The Saint Lord of the Sorcerer Tribe said in a trembling voice, I don't care if they were passed down from your ancestors. If you don't want to hand over the 3 ancestor sorcerer corpses, that's fine. After I uproot the Sorcerer Tribe, I will find the 3 ancestor sorcerer corpses that you have hidden. The green-furred mummy said with a murderous look, Don't. Senior, don't do anything rash. I can give you the 3 ancestor sorcerer corpses, but it will take some time. Not long ago, the Sorcerer Song Festival ended, and 12 geniuses need to enter the Ancestor Sorcerer Magical Pond for baptism. After the baptism, I will bring you to the Ancestor Sorcerer Magical Pond. How about that? The Saint Lord of the Sorcerer Tribe sighed. Okay, I will wait for a while more. Anyway, I am not in a hurry, the green-furred mummy said, and closed its eyes again. It was as if it had turned into a lifeless mummy. The Saint Lord of the Sorcerer Tribe smiled bitterly. He was really unlucky to have met such a shameless expert. Suddenly, a beautiful figure quietly entered the room. Grand Priest, what's wrong? The moment the Saint Lord of the Sorcerer Tribe saw the beautiful figure, his previous weakness disappeared, and he exuded a powerful aura. The beautiful figure was the Grand Priest of the Sorcerer Tribe, Wu Wuxian. She knelt on one knee and stole a glance at the green-furred mummy that was pretending to be dead. Then she said, Saint Lord, Longwen has been wreaking havoc in Sorcerer God City. Now that he has been caught, I am here to report to you. Would you like to go with me to judge him? I don't need to show up for such a small matter. You can handle it, the Saint Lord of the Sorcerer Tribe said impatiently. You said that his name is Longwen? The moment the Saint Lord of the Sorcerer Tribe finished speaking, the green-furred mummy that was pretending to be dead suddenly jumped up and asked the Grand Priest. Wu Wuxian was shocked. She had not noticed when the green-furred mummy had come to her side. How powerful must he be to be able to get close to her without anyone noticing? If the green-furred mummy had wanted to kill her, she would have been a corpse just now. He is a disciple of a small clan who is participating in the Sorcerer Song Conference. His name is Longwen, and he has violated the rules of Sorcerer God City. We are going to judge him now, Wu Wuxian said hurriedly, her voice trembling slightly. Oh, Longwen is not a human, the green-furred mummy asked in surprise. You must be joking. If he is a human, he would not be able to participate in the Sorcerer Song Conference. He would not even be able to move around in the primitive sky realm. How could he be a human? Wu Wuxian said with a forced smile. Oh, I see. Then take me to your trial as well. I am interested in Longwen and want to see what he is like, the green-furred mummy said. Wu Wuxian and the Saint Lord of the Sorcerer Tribe looked at each other. They were confused. Why would this powerful expert be interested in a disciple of a small clan? Could it be that he knew Longwen? Why are you still standing there? Hurry up and take me with you, the green-furred mummy said impatiently. The Saint Lord of the Sorcerer Tribe was helpless. He said to Wu Wuxian, Grand Priest, let's go with them. Chapter 3354. Carve Upshulwen followed behind Hijish and entered the main hall of the Sorcerer Tribe. The main hall of the sorcerer tribe was indeed magnificent. The decorations in the hall were extremely luxurious and spacious. Hijish did not bind Zhuowen's hands and feet like a prisoner. He was very proud of himself. Longwen was just a disciple of a small tribe. Hijish was a middle-stage expert of the sorcerer tribe. If Longwen wanted to escape, he could suppress him with a flip of his hand. After entering the main hall, Zhuowen realized that there was another group of people behind him. This group of people was Corpse Inha and the others who had followed him. Hijish naturally noticed Corpse Inha and the others. However, he did not bother with them. Instead, he stood silently in front of the stairs in the main hall, waiting for the Grand Priest to appear. Soon, 3 figures walked out from the depths of the main hall and stood on the throne at the top of the stairs. What surprised Hijish and the others was that not only had the Grand Priest Wu Wuxian come, but the Holy Master of the Sorcerer Tribe had also come. In addition, there was a green-haired mummy who stood calmly in front of the Holy Master of the Sorcerer Tribe and Wu Wuxian. Then, under the stunned gazes of Hijish and the others, the green-haired mummy sat on the throne casually. Usually, only the Holy Master of the Sorcerer Tribe had the right to sit on the throne. What surprised them even more was that the Holy Master of the Sorcerer Tribe was not angry. Instead, he revealed a fawning expression. This caused a stir in everyone's hearts. They were all guessing who the green-haired mummy was and why the Holy Master of the Sorcerer Tribe was fawning over him. The moment Zhuowen saw the green-haired mummy, he was stunned. He was all too familiar with the green-haired mummy. Back then, he had obtained the Panga banner from the ominous Meridian. At the same time, he had released the green-haired mummy that had been suppressed by the Panga banner. The green-haired mummy's strength was terrifying. Back then, it had been suppressed for too long, and its strength had been reduced to less than 10%. However, it had still been able to kill him with one hand. If he had not relied on the Panga banner back then, he would have been killed by the green-haired mummy. And now, Zhuowen discovered that the aura of this green-furred corpse was even more unfathomable. He had also heard of how powerful the Sorcerer Tribe's Holy Master was. He knew that the Sorcerer Tribe's Holy Master was a supreme expert at the peak of sky piercing. However, in front of the green-furred mummy, he was timid and careful. It could be seen that the green-furred mummy was much stronger than the Holy Lord of the Sorcerer Tribe. Zhuowen knew that the green-haired mummy must have fully recovered during the time he was separated from it. Otherwise, the Holy Master of the Sorcerer Tribe would not be so afraid of it. Moreover, the green-furred mummy had screwed him over in the past. The main reason why the Eastern Emperor Tai Yi had appeared and controlled the 8 heavens was because the green-furred corpse had taken something from the 9-storied pagoda, causing the seal on the Eastern Emperor Tai Yi to break. This guy was a troublemaker. Now that he appeared in front of him, Zhuowen had to try his best not to be recognized by this guy. The green-haired mummy sized up Zhuowen. At first, it was puzzled, but soon the smile on its face grew wider and wider. This is a criminal of the Sorcerer Tribe. You can judge him. I'll just watch. The green-furred mummy said flatly. The Holy Master of the Sorcerer Tribe nodded and gave Wu Wuxian, the Grand Priest, a look indicating for her to begin. Longwen, you knowingly broke the law and destroyed the buildings within a 10-mile radius of the Sorcerer God's city. You even injured many of our friends. Do you know your crime? Wu Wuxian said in a low voice. I know my crime. Zhuowen only wanted to get away from the green-furred mummy as soon as possible, so he did not quibble and admitted his crime without hesitation. Wu Wuxian was stunned. She did not expect Longwen to admit his crime so quickly. Since you know your crime, I won't make things difficult for you. Put this guy in the dungeon first. Wu Wuxian gave the young Zhao He a look. Originally, she had wanted to ask Zhuowen to hand over his spiritual ring in the main hall of the sorcerer tribe. She was sure that there were many heaven-level elixirs and other good things in his spiritual ring. Heaven-level elixirs were much rarer in the untainted heavenly realm than in the Xianmi heavenly realm. Even the sorcerer tribe did not have many heaven-level elixirs, and some big clans did not even have any. Since Zhuowen could easily take out transcending heaven-grade divine pills to trade, he definitely had a lot of such divine pills on him. What Wu Wuxian coveted even more was Zhuowen's soul sword intense secret technique. That kind of secret technique was even rarer than a transcendent divine pill. She wouldn't let it go. However, the green-furred mummy was an outsider, so she could not say these words now. Once Longwen was locked up in the dungeon, she would seize Zhuowen's spirit ring and carefully examine it to see if there were any other secrets in it. Wait, the green-furred mummy suddenly said. The young Zhao He, who had wanted to take Zhuowen away, could not help but stop and look at Wu Wuxian and the holy master of the sorcerer tribe to ask for their opinion. Senior, what do you want? The holy master of the sorcerer tribe asked cautiously. I'm quite interested in this boy. Why don't you give him to me? The green-furred mummy said casually. The holy master of the sorcerer tribe frowned and looked a little unhappy, but he did not dare to offend the green-furred mummy. Wu Wuxian also knew how terrifying the green-furred mummy was. After thinking for a while, she said, If you're interested, we can give him to you. However, this boy took something very important to the sorcerer tribe and hid it in his spiritual ring. We can give him to you, but we want to take his spiritual ring. Wu Wuxian said, I'm only interested in this boy. You can do whatever you want with the spiritual ring. The green-furred mummy did not care. Thank you, Senior. Wu Wuxian smiled and cupped his hands. Then he rushed to Zhuowen's side and took the spirit ring from Zhuowen's hand. Then he carried Zhuowen to the green-furred mummy and handed him over. I'll take this boy back. The green-furred mummy took Zhuowen out of the hall and into the depths of the hall. After the green-furred mummy left, the holy master of the sorcerer tribe sent a message to Wu Wuxian and asked, High Priest, does this boy's spiritual ring really have a large number of divine elixirs and powerful divine soul secret skills? It's true. This boy is just a disciple of a small tribe, but he was able to defeat Shifu and Feng Bumming. He has a big secret. In addition, this boy took out a divine elixir at the middle stage of divine elixir to trade with Xingyuan at the trade fair. From this, it can be seen that this boy's foundation is not to be underestimated. This is also the reason why I tried so hard to take his spiritual ring. However, this boy's spiritual ring has an extremely powerful restriction. This restriction is very complicated and troublesome. I'm afraid it will take me at least 4 or 5 days to break it. Wu Wuxian said in a low voice, That's good. You can decide this matter. When the time comes, I won't treat you badly. The holy master of the sorcerer tribe nodded and turned to enter the depths of the hall. After the holy master of the sorcerer tribe left, Wu Wuxian looked at Corpse Yinma and the others below and said, Everyone, there is a very powerful restriction in the spiritual ring. I will need at least 4 or 5 days to break it. After I break it, all of you will have a share. If you are worried, you can follow me during this time. This is a serious matter. I plan to follow the high priest. Corpse Yinma smiled and cupped his hands. The 3 tribe leaders of the Dragon Tribe, Mermaid Tribe, and Black Tiger Tribe also expressed Corpse Yinma's intention. However, Feng Liluo of the Phoenix people was willing to give up this time's share. She hoped that the high priest would give Feng Bumming a place to enter the wizard's magical pond. Chapter 33:55. The 5 Decay of Heaven and Main in the Dark Room. The green-haired mummy sized up Zhuowen. You're interesting. With the body of a mere human, you dare to enter the eldritch heaven realm. You are quite bold. Your concealment technique is also interesting. You even fooled the Saint Master of the Sorcerer tribe. Unfortunately, you can't fool me. The green-haired mummy laughed strangely. Zhuowen looked calm. When the green-haired mummy saw him, he knew that the mummy had recognized him. It was his human original body that appeared in front of the green-haired mummy. He relied on the powerful concealment technique of the undying bird to cover his aura completely. This was how he managed to fool the high priest and the others. As for the Pangu's sacred body avatar, he placed it in the macro world. The macro world turned into a speck of dust and was placed on Purple Star Sovereign. The great world was Zhuowen's secret. This kind of space was not an ordinary storage space, but a world that gave birth to its own laws. The living beings in this world were completely self-sufficient, which was extremely rare. It was because of the macro world that Zhuowen used the trick of injuring himself to let his human original body enter the main hall of the sorcerer tribe with the Yangshi couple and admit his guilt. He knew that as long as his avatar could advance smoothly and enter the place where Pangu had fallen to obtain the other part of the legacy, he would not be afraid of the sorcerer tribe. As for his human original body, he was not worried. Neither the high priest Wu Wuxian nor the saint lord of the sorcerer tribe knew that Zhuowen was a powerful divine, a ray master at the heaven level. If they had known, they would not have been so careless as to just lock him up in the dungeon. This was because he had already prepared a temporary teleportation formation. As long as Wu Wuxian noticed that something was wrong with the spiritual ring, he would immediately use the temporary teleportation formation to teleport directly to the inn where the 4 formations were set up. However, there was a variable, and that was the green-haired mummy in front of him. Zhuowen knew that when Wu Wuxian mentioned that the Holy Lord of the Sorcerer tribe was receiving an important guest, he was probably talking about this green-haired mummy. "Did you call me here just to tell me this?" Zhuowen's gaze was calm as he asked, indifferently. "That's not it. You came to the Sorcerer tribe for the 3 ancestral sorcerer corpses hidden by the Sorcerer tribe, right?" The green-haired mummy laughed. Zhuowen frowned slightly and sighed. "So what if I am, now that I've already failed and been captured here? I'm no different from a prisoner. There's no way I can come into contact with the corpses of the 3 grand shamans. Hee, I remember that you have a doppelganger. Right now, you only have your original human body in front of me, but your doppelganger isn't here." The green-haired mummy sneered. "Sigh, you also know that the great, desolate heavenly realm is full of difficulties. My clone fell in the great, desolate heavenly realm, and now only this human body is left." Zhuowen sighed. His doppelganger entering the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond was a very important part of his plan. He would never allow the green-haired mummy to ruin it. "Green Hat, you tricked me on purpose, didn't you? You took away the bead on the 9-story pagoda, drew out the East Emperor Tai, and involved the entire 8 heavens in a catastrophe. What's that bead?" Zhuowen didn't want to be entangled in the issue of his doppelganger, so he changed the topic. "Don't call me Green Hat anymore. If you dare to call me that again, I'll kill you directly," the green-haired mummy said in an unfriendly tone. Zhuowen shrugged and stopped calling the green-haired mummy by his nickname. Instead, he continued, "The holy master of the sorcerer tribe should be at the peak of the sky-reaching master, right? He's so respectful in front of you. Could it be that you've broken through the heavens?" The green-haired mummy sneered and said, "Ignorant fool, you're not doing anything. Let me tell you clearly, I'm still a distance away from breaking through the heavens." "You're not breaking through the heavens, but you're stronger than the peak of the sky-reaching master? Then what's your cultivation level?" Zhuowen asked with a frown. "Haha, Although the peak of the sky-reaching master is only one step away from breaking through the heavens, it's as difficult as ascending to the heavens to take that step. Let me tell you the truth. If the peak of the sky-reaching master wants to break through the heavens, they have to go through 5 extremely terrifying disasters. And these disasters are usually called the 5 decay of heaven and man. Only by truly overcoming the decay of heaven and earth and breaking the shackles of heaven and earth can one be qualified to become the true master of heaven and earth, and then step into the heaven-breaking realm. The so-called decay is the exhaustion of the mind, the deterioration of the internal organs, skin, flesh, blood, and bones, the heavenly Tao, the collapse of spirituality, and extreme pain. In the end, one will be reduced to being neither human nor ghost. The 5 decay of heaven, and man is also called half-step into the heaven-breaking realm. However, every time a cultivator passes a decay tribulation, their strength will also undergo a tremendous change. If they can't pass it, they'll definitely die. Although the holy master of the sorcerer tribe is at the peak of the sky-reaching master, he hasn't even passed a single decay tribulation. So how can he be compared to me? Oh, the peak of the sky-reaching master has to go through the 5 decay of heaven and man to reach the heaven-breaking realm? May I know how many decay tribulations you've passed? Zhuowen asked curiously. You're not qualified to ask about my cultivation level. You only need to know that I'm stronger than the holy master of the sorcerer tribe, and much stronger. However, the sorcerer tribe is the direct descendant of the sorcerer tribe after all, and their foundation is extremely deep. The sorcerer tribe doesn't only have the holy master of the sorcerer tribe, the green-haired mummy said lightly. The sorcerer tribe also has half-step into the heaven-breaking realm? Zhuowen asked with a frown. Of course there are. In the primitive heavenly realm, all the races with some foundation and a long history have half-step into the heaven-breaking realm powerhouses, and the human race in the Xianmi heavenly realm also has some half-step into the heaven-breaking realm. However, these powerhouses are basically not in these 2 heavenly realms, but hidden in the sky-reaching secret realm. That's a good place. I only heard about it recently. The green-haired mummy laughed strangely. Sky-reaching secret realm? Zhuowen's eyes flashed. He really didn't expect that under this starry sky, there really were powerhouses at the peak of the sky-reaching secret realm. Moreover, there were many of these powerhouses, but they were all in the sky-reaching secret realm. Although this secret was a little shocking, Zhuowen felt that it was reasonable after thinking about it. Since Pangu created the world, this starry sky had existed for too long. After such a long time, countless creatures had multiplied and cultivated, and generation after generation of peerless geniuses had naturally appeared. These geniuses couldn't have all died with the passage of time, and there must be some powerhouses left behind. And now he knew that these powerhouses were all in the sky-reaching secret realm. The sky-reaching secret realm was the world of the sky-reaching master, and the lowest threshold was the sky-reaching master, which showed that this world was definitely not simple. Moreover, Zhuowen also guessed that Pangu's strength should have been at the 5th decay of the celestial being 5 decay, very close to the heaven-breaking realm. There was no need to doubt Pangu's strength. Even if all the half-step into the heaven-breaking realm in this starry sky worked together, they still wouldn't be a match for Pangu. Moreover, Zhuowen had received Pangu's inheritance, and he knew that Pangu's bloodline was innate. Back then, Pangu was born from the chaos, and his strength was close to the heaven-breaking realm as soon as he was born. He broke open the chaos and created the starry sky. If Pangu hadn't been destroyed by the chaos, he would have probably been a supreme powerhouse of the heaven-breaking realm for countless years, and he would have broken open this starry sky and left long ago. Chapter 33:56. Ancestral Sorcerer's Magical Pond. You didn't just take me back from the sorcerer tribe just to tell me this, did you? What do you want? Zhuowen looked at the green-haired mummy and asked. The green-haired mummy sneered and said, "What do I want? It's simple. I want the Panga banner on you." Zhuowen sneered and said, "The Panga banner has merged with me. You want the Panga banner? Ha ha." The green-haired mummy said calmly, "I have a way to separate your divine soul from the Panga banner, but it will take a lot of time and energy. I'll deal with you after I get the 3 ancestral sorcerer corpses from the sorcerer tribe." After saying that, the green-haired mummy waved his right hand, and green vines grew out from under Zhuowen's feet. They wrapped around Zhuowen's limbs and tied him to the giant pillar behind him. Zhuowen frowned slightly. He could feel that the power of the green vines was extremely powerful and terrifying. Even his doppelganger, who had cultivated the Panga's sacred body, would not be able to break free from the green vines, let alone his original body of the human race. "You'd better stay here obediently for the time being." After saying that, the green-haired mummy slowly walked out of the room. In an inn in the outer city of the sorcerer god city, Zhuowen's doppelganger, who was dressed in black, suddenly turned pale. "Brother Zhuo, what's wrong?" Crepe Star Sovereign, who was sitting cross-legged opposite Zhuowen, sensed that Zhuowen's aura was fluctuating, so he could not help but ask, "No, it's just that my human body ran into some trouble in the sorcerer tribe hall, but it doesn't matter. As long as my doppelganger can make further progress in the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond, these problems can be solved," Zhuowen said in a low voice. Yes, we can only wait for 3 days." Crepe Star Sovereign nodded. Time flew by, and 3 days passed quickly. On this day, the inner city was bustling with noise and excitement because it was the day that the 12 geniuses selected by the Sorcerer's Song Council would enter the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond. Crepe Star Sovereign slowly stood up as Zhuowen's avatar opposite him entered the great world. As for the great world, it turned into a speck of dust that adhered to Crepe Star Sovereign's body. Meanwhile, Crepe Star Sovereign shot out like a bolt of lightning. The moment Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign flew out, divine wills swept over from every corner of Magus God City. These divine wills were extremely hostile. Crepe Myrtle Star naturally sensed the brazen divine wills. The corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile as he ignored them. He knew that since he was still in Sorcerer God City, the races that were eyeing him covetously would not dare to attack him openly. However, things would be different after he left the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond and left the Sorcerer God City. At that time, there would definitely be many experts of the foreign races following him because they guessed that he had secrets. After all, Crepe Myrtle Star was only a disciple of a small clan. He did not have a powerful backer or background. A soft persimmon, like him, was the favorite target of others. Soon, Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign entered the inner city and arrived at the guarded ground where the sorcerer tribe's main hall was located. At this moment, the other 10 geniuses who had entered the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond had all arrived. These 10 people were Wu Xingyuan, Wu Xiran, and Wu Wenbin of the sorcerer tribe, Wu Qiutong of the nine-tailed fox tribe, Tu Qian of the moon wolf tribe, Xiu Kong of the space-time beast tribe, Xiang Gui of the giant tortoise tribe, Hu Tung of the black tiger tribe, Long Hui of the dragon tribe, and Jingshan of the dragon tribe. Jingshan's expression did not look too good. She already knew that Long Wen had been captured and brought to the sorcerer tribe's main hall. His fate was uncertain. She originally wanted to work with Long Wen to go to the place where Pangu fell. However, she did not expect such a turn of events. This made Jingshan sigh in her heart and blame Long Wen for being so careless. Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign also saw another person who was not supposed to be here. It was Feng Bumming of the Phoenix people. At this moment, Feng Bumming was arrogant, and his eyes were filled with excitement. His slot was simply a gift from the heavens. Ha! Long one, long one. It's really karma and retribution. You cheated me out of a spot, and now this spot has finally fallen into my hands, hasn't it? Foam Bumming laughed heartily in his heart, feeling indescribably comfortable. Thinking of this, Foam Bumming cast a sidelong glance at Crepe Myrtlestar's sovereign. After entering the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond, if there was a chance, he planned to kill Longwen's accomplice, Zixing, to vent his anger. Crepe Myrtlestar Sovereign's performance in the Sorcerer's Song Gathering had always been average. Therefore, the other cultivators here thought that although Zixing's strength was not bad, there was still a gap between them and Crepe Myrtlestar Sovereign. At this moment, Wu Wuxian walked out of the Sorcerer Tribe's main hall. Behind him were Corpse Marsh, Tiger Shah, and the other 3 clan leaders. These 4 clan leaders had voluntarily stayed 3 days ago to watch Wu Wuxian break Zhuan's spiritual ring. However, the restrictions in the spiritual ring were very complicated. There were layers upon layers, as if there was no end to them. In 3 days, Wu Wuxian had only managed to break 1/3 of them. Now that the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond was opening, Wu Wuxian could only give up on breaking the restrictions and focus on opening the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond. She planned to continue breaking the restrictions after the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond was closed. Corpse Marsh and the other 3 clan leaders also knew how difficult it was to break the restrictions on the surface of the spiritual ring. Even a formation expert like Wu Wuxian had difficulty breaking them. They knew that even if they obtained the spiritual ring, it would be useless if they could not break it. Now, they could only rely on Wu Wuxian. Everyone, congratulations on standing out in the Sorcerer's Song Gathering. Now, I will open the entrance to the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond. Once you enter, you will be baptized by the power of the ancestral sorcerer. However, there is a time limit. You can only stay for 10 days at most. After 10 days, the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond will naturally teleport you out. As Wu Wuxian spoke, he took out a token and threw it out. Instantly, the 12 ancestral sorcerer statues around the guarded ground emitted white light. They turned into a parabola and swept towards the center. Finally, the white light gathered in the center of the guarded ground and formed a white spiral vortex. The spiral vortex spun at an extremely fast speed and quickly spread out, forming a large circular hole. The 12 of you can go in, Wu Wuxian said calmly. As soon as Wu Wuxian finished speaking, Wu Xingyuan stomped his right foot and rushed into the circular hole. Then Wu Xiaoran and Wu Wenbin followed closely behind. Seeing the 3 geniuses of the sorcerer tribe enter the hole without hesitation, Wu Qiutong and the other geniuses did not hesitate and rushed into the hole as well. Jingshan glanced at Crepe Myrtlestar's sovereign indifferently. She was too lazy to say anything and followed closely behind the crowd. Chapter 3357. Restriction. High Priest, are you really going to let Zixing enter the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond? Corpse Marsh said, unhappily as he watched Zixing disappear into the hole. Wu Wuxian glanced at Corpse Marsh and said, "Don't worry, I'm not interested in Zixing. After the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond is over, I won't care what you do to him, as long as you don't attack him openly in Sorcerer God City. However, correspondingly, I must take the majority of the items in the dragon's spiritual ring." Corpse Marsh and the others looked at each other and nodded in agreement. They also knew that only Wu Wuxian could unlock the restriction on the ring. Moreover, they were in the sorcerer tribe's territory. If they objected, they might not be able to bear the consequences. After Myrtlestar, Lord entered the hole. He sensed that the hole had closed the moment he entered. He landed on the ground and realized that he was in a valley. The valley was huge and spanned tens of thousands of miles. It was an unprecedentedly huge valley. In the middle of the valley, there was an extremely large pool of water. This pool of water looked turbid and unclear, as if it was churning in chaos. However, the moment Wu Xingyuan and the others saw the pool water, their eyes lit up. The energy in the pool water was too rich. It did not seem like the energy of the heavenly path. It was more like another type of energy of a higher level. Above the pool, white vein-like lines floated in the air, directly connecting to the distant sky above the valley. It was as if these lines had become a medium, transmitting some kind of powerful energy from the sky into the pool water. Those are the corpses of the ancestral sorcerer. Feng Bumming raised his head, his eyes full of shock as he looked at the end of the lines that were derived from the pool water. 3 incomparably huge corpses, which seemed to cover the sky and the sun, were quietly suspended high in the sky. Yes, this is the foundation of our sorcerer tribe. 3 ancestral sorcerer corpses. These 3 ancestral sorcerer corpses are Xianming, Rushu, and Changliang. This pool water is a baptismal pool formed by the power of the ancestral sorcerer. We only have 10 days to be baptized in this baptismal pool. You'd better not miss this great opportunity. Wu Xiuran proudly introduced the baptism pool in front of him, his voice filled with pride. Wu Xingyuan didn't say a word, and his gaze was cold and indifferent. He took a step into the baptism pool and started to circulate his cultivation technique. He relied on the energy of the ancestral shaman to start baptizing the blood, tendons, and bones in his body. When the others saw Wu Xingyuan taking the lead, they all jumped into the baptismal pool one after another. They only had 10 days of time within the ancestral shaman miraculous pond. In other words, they only had 10 days of time to undergo the baptism, and they couldn't waste it. Especially after entering the baptism pool, the rich energy surged towards them from all directions, making them feel comfortable and refreshed from head to toe. All the geniuses who had entered the pool were pleasantly surprised. In fact, there were even some geniuses who felt that their bottleneck had loosened during the process of the baptism, so they hurriedly began cultivating, hoping to make a breakthrough with the help of the baptism. Crepe Myrtle Star was still the last to enter the baptismal pool, but he was quickly stopped. "Sai, you don't have the right to enter the baptismal pool." The ones who stopped Ziwei Star Sovereign were Wu Xiuran and Wu Wenbin. The two of them looked at Ziwei Star Sovereign mockingly. Wu Xiuran and Wu Wenbin's actions immediately attracted the attention of the other geniuses in the baptismal pool. Feng Bumming's lips curled into a hideous grin. Then he burst into unbridled laughter filled with mockery. Tu Qian of the Moon Wolf clan, Wu Qiutong of the Nine-Tailed Fox clan, and the other geniuses remained silent and watched coldly from the sidelines. Boring. Wu Xingyuan glanced at him indifferently and didn't care much. Instead, he closed his eyes again. He knew why Wu Xiuran and Wu Wenbin were targeting Ziwei Star Sovereign. It was all because of Wu Wuxian's orders. Although Wu Wuxian had promised Zhuowen to allow Ziwei Star to enter the ancestral shaman miraculous pond, he had secretly ordered Wu Xiuran and Wu Wenbin to stop Ziwei Star from undergoing the baptism. If necessary, it would not be impossible to directly destroy this purple star. Wu Xiuran and Wu Wenbin were sure that Ziwei Star would be enraged. When that happened, they would have a reason to eliminate Ziwei Star in one fell swoop. Ziwei Star Sovereign's eyes were cold. Just as he was about to make a move, his expression changed, and he held himself back. He retreated a few dozen steps from the baptismal pool and sat on a large rock. He closed his eyes and sat cross-legged. "Coward!" Wu Xiuran and Wu Wenbin sneered and withdrew their attacks. They knew that there would be plenty of opportunities to deal with Z-Wei Star Sovereign. There was no reason for them to make a move now. They focused on absorbing the energy of the baptismal pool. As expected of Longwen's friend, you really have guts. If you can swallow this, there will be nothing you can't swallow in the future. Ha ha. Feng Bumming laughed loudly. Tu Qian, Wu Qiutong, and the others secretly shook their heads and ignored Z-Wei's Star Sovereign. It was a waste of time for them to care about such a coward. Z-Wei's Star Sovereign's eyes were as calm as water. He seemed to be meditating, but in fact, he was communicating with Zhuowen through divine thought. Brother Zhua, why did you stop me just now? If I were to make a move, other than Wu Xingyuan, no one else would be a match for me. Z-Wei's Star Sovereign said, with some dissatisfaction. Just now, when Wu Xiuran and Wu Wenbin were provoking him, Z-Wei's Star Sovereign wanted to make a move. However, he was stopped by Zhuowen, which made Z-Wei's Star Sovereign feel unbalanced. Brother Z-Wei, we have time to deal with these people, but we came here to do business. I need to get close to the 3 ancestral sorcerer corpses. If I'm not wrong, the 3 corpses should be surrounded by powerful restriction formations set up by Wu Wuxian. I need time to break the formation. It's unwise to start a conflict with these geniuses now. After I break the restriction formations around the ancestral sorcerer corpses and find what I need, it'll be time for us to make a move. In the macro world, Zhuowen sat cross-legged in the pavilion of the island in the lake and calmly communicated with Z-Wei Star Sovereign through divine thought. Z-Wei Star Sovereign could only nod and agree. He said through divine thought, in that case, I'll bear with it for a while. You go and check the ancestral sorcerer corpses. As soon as Z-Wei Star Sovereign finished speaking, a speck of dust on his shoulder gradually floated up in the anti-gravity state and slowly approached the 3 ancestral sorcerer corpses above the baptismal pool. Wu Xingyuan slowly opened his eyes and looked blankly at the sky above the baptismal pool that was covered with lines. For a moment, he actually felt a wave of fluctuation above the baptismal pool. Although the fluctuation was very weak, he was still keenly aware of it. Chapter 33:58. I'm Zhuowen. Was it just my imagination? Wu Xingyuan muttered to himself. He extended his divine consciousness to sense the fluctuation just now, but he realized that there was nothing. In the end, Wu Xingyuan shook his head. After confirming that it was just his imagination, he focused on immersing himself in the baptismal pool and quickly improved his strength. Wu Xingyuan's divine sense is quite sharp. He sensed the fluctuation when the great world entered the baptismal pool. A speck of dust floated a few hundred meters above the baptismal pool. Zhuowen, who was in the great world, looked serious. However, after Wu Xingyuan stopped paying attention to him, he continued to control the speck of dust that was the great world. Soon, Zhuowen was tens of thousands of meters above the great world. At that moment, the corpses of the 3 wizard ancestors were very close. However, when the speck of dust formed by the great world approached the corpses of the 3 wizard ancestors, it was blocked by an invisible and transparent energy. Zhuowen knew that this was the restriction set up by Wu Wuxian. He controlled the great world and circled the corpses of the 3 wizard ancestors a few times. After careful observation, his face became extremely serious. He roughly observed and found that there were 81 restrictions set up around the corpses of the 3 wizard ancestors. Moreover, the level of each restriction was basically at the heaven ascension level. The wizard tribe is really cautious about these 3 wizard ancestors. They set up so many restrictions. Even if an ordinary heaven ascension divine formation master were to come here, he would be helpless against such complicated restrictions. Zhuowen observed for a while and frowned as he shook his head. However, Zhuowen was not an ordinary Heaven Ascension divine formation master. His formation Tao was inherited from the true record of elixir formation, the work of the celestial alchemy formation master. His level was far superior to other formation Tao masters of the same level. Moreover, Zhuowen had the ultimacy, Hongmeng Wuji. This ultimacy specialized in breaking restrictions. Coupled with his level of formation Tao, it was not difficult for him to break the 81 restrictions. After understanding the 81 restrictions, Zhuowen was not in a hurry to break them. Instead, he controlled the great world back to the shore of the baptismal pool and returned to the shoulder of the Star Sovereign. "Brother Zhuo, why are you back so soon?" The Star Sovereign asked in surprise. "The restrictions are quite the great world. For me, they are not much. Therefore, I plan to get rid of the people here who are in my way first, and then slowly look for what I need." Zhuowen replied. The Star Sovereign's eyes, was calm. He had been holding it in for so long and was very sullen. Now, Zhuowen's words made him feel much better. Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign's laughter naturally alerted the other 11 geniuses in the baptismal pool. Was Star Sovereign, Star Wu translation Wu, and Purple Star translation, Star translation, and translation, what? Now, he actually dared to laugh out loud. Was he intentionally trying to disturb them? Translation, Star was translation to be. I wanted to let you go, but you disturbed my cultivation. You deserve to die. Go to hell. Wu Xiuran and Wu Wenbin jumped out of the baptismal pool at the same time. They rushed towards the Star Sovereign like two bolts of lightning. Terrifying gales swept out. The surrounding time and space seemed to flow in reverse. Wu Xiuran and Wu Wenbin were very strong. They were both at the early stage of the Master of Heaven Ascension. When they joined forces, they could fight against an expert at the intermediate stage of the Master of Heaven Ascension. Wu Qiutong and the others looked at Wu Xiuran and Wu Wenbin in surprise. They felt that the two of them were making a big fuss. They were too cautious. The Star Sovereign snorted. He stomped his right foot and punched at Wu Xiuran. He did not care about Wu Wenbin behind him. This idiot is trying to hit a rock with an egg. Wu Wenbin could not help but laugh when he saw the Star Sovereign attack Wu Xiuran. He had given up defending himself. But soon, Wu Wenbin felt that something was wrong. When his attack neared Crepe Myrtle Star Monarch, a very bad feeling rose in his heart. He actually sensed an extremely terrifying energy behind Crepe Myrtle Star Monarch approaching him. Suddenly, a spiral vortex appeared on the Crepe Myrtle Star Lord's shoulder. A powerful fist energy blasted out from the vortex. The moment the fist and palm collided, Wu Wenbin felt that he was as small as an ant in front of the fist force. Then, his right fist exploded into a bloody mist. Wu Wenbin screamed and spat out a mouthful of blood. He flew back with his broken right arm. The moment he flew back, Wu Wenbin saw the fist force in the vortex disappear. A figure walked out. He was too familiar with this figure. It was Long Wen, who had been captured by their high priest. But how was this possible? How was this guy still alive? Right when Wu Wenbin's thoughts were running wild, Long Wen stomped his right foot and vanished on the spot as if he'd teleported. When Long Wen appeared again, he was already very close to him. So fast. Just as Wu Wenbin thought of these two words, Zhuo Wen's terrifying fist force blasted out again. It turned into a dense barrage of fist shadows in the air, all of which bombarded Wu Wenbin's body. Puff, 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 puff. The terrifying fist shadows landed on Wu Wenbin's body. Puffs of bloody mist burst out. It looked miserable and ferocious. Wu Wenbin's consciousness was blurred. The pain in his body was numb. When he forced his eyes open, a huge fist became bigger and bigger in his eyes. Finally, it blasted between his eyebrows. Intense pain assaulted him. Then, Wu Wenbin's vision turned completely dark. Puff! Wu Wenbin was almost instantly killed. He fell to the ground, and his divine soul was destroyed. Not long after Wu Wenbin was killed, Wu Xiran also screamed. His body was torn in half by the Star Sovereign. His divine soul was destroyed, and his corpse was badly damaged. The moment Wu Xiran and Wu Wenbin were killed, all the geniuses in the baptismal pool opened their eyes. They looked at the scene in front of them in disbelief. Wu Xiran and Wu Wenbin had just made a move, and they were killed in an instant. This purple Star Sovereign was too terrifying. But soon, they saw another figure beside Wu Wenbin's body. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. This was because they were not unfamiliar with this figure. Instead, they were all too familiar with it. This was because he was Long One who was captured by the sorcerer tribe. What's going on? Could it be that my eyes are playing tricks on me? Why would this dragon text appear here? Fong Bumming rubbed his eyes hard. The moment he opened his eyes, his neck was grabbed tightly by a big hand. Then, he was lifted out of the baptismal pool. His feet were suspended in the air, and he kept swinging. Now, come closer and take a closer look. See if you're seeing things. Zhuowen lifted Fong Bumming. His tone was as calm as water, but in Fong Bumming's ears, it was so cold that he trembled. It's really you, Long One? Fong Bumming's eyes widened, and his voice was sharp. Fong Bumming, I have another surprise for you. My original name is not Long One, but Zhuowen. Zhuowen suddenly sent a message to Fong Bumming with a smile. Fong Bumming's body trembled. He stared at Zhuowen and blurted out, "You're Zhuo?" Chapter 3359. Clean and tidy. Bang! Zhuowen casually threw Fong Bumming's body aside and looked disdainfully at the rest of the geniuses in the baptismal pool. Standing beside Zhuowen, Crepe Star Lord looked coldly at the geniuses who had mocked him. His gaze was as cold as frost, making the geniuses feel uneasy. Wu Qiutong, Tu Qian, and the rest of the geniuses were dumbfounded. They looked at Zhuowen with their mouths slightly agape. They could not believe that Zhuowen had sneaked into the ancestral sorcerer magical pond. Wasn't he captured by the high priest Wu Wuxian? Jingshan, who was in the baptismal pool, looked at Zhuowen with surprise. She did not expect Zhuowen to enter the ancestral sorcerer magical pond. What an incredible guy! Wu Xingyuan slowly stood up from the baptismal pool. His calm gaze was filled with frost. The killing intent was like a mighty pressure, spreading out with a rumble, instantly filling the entire valley. Longwen, how dare you kill the geniuses of the sorcerer tribe? Wu Xingyuan was furious. His voice fluctuated and was extremely stern. An extremely vast and terrifying aura surged out of Wu Xingyuan's body. The entire baptismal pool began to boil. Countless turbid liquids surged out like angry dragons, spreading in all directions. Wu Xingyuan was in the middle of the berserk liquid. His long hair fluttered like a peerless demon god. Wu Xingyuan has released his killing intent. Longwen is in trouble. Tu Qian from the Moonwolf clan hid to the side and looked at Wu Xingyuan solemnly. He originally thought that the gap between him and Wu Xingyuan was not too big, so he had always regarded Wu Xingyuan as a competitor. But now, after Wu Xingyuan released all his aura, he realized that he was too naive. There was no doubt that Wu Xingyuan was terrifying. He was much stronger than he had expected. Just the aura alone made Tu Qian feel that Wu Xingyuan was unreachable and terrifying. Tu Qian knew that if he were to fight with Wu Xingyuan now, he would definitely be defeated. As for that Long One, he admitted that although his strength was not bad, but at most, it was on par with him. He naturally did not think that Long One would be a match for this Wu Xingyuan. Brother Zhua, let me deal with this Wu Xingyuan. Purple Star Sovereign took the lead and stood in front of Zhuowen, intending to fight Wu Xingyuan. Brother Ziwei, I'll have to trouble you then. I still need to settle some old scores with a few people. Hold off Wu Xingyuan for a while. Zhuowen nodded, his gaze falling on Hu Teng and Long Hui. Back then, there were a total of 5 races that had ambushed him and slandered him. They were the Ghoul race, the Phoenix people, the Dragon race, the Black Tiger race, and the Merfolk race. Shifu from the Corpse race and Feng Bumming from the Phoenix people had already been killed by him. Meanwhile, the genius from the Merman race had been eliminated by Jingshan and was not qualified to enter the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond. Only Hu Teng of the Black Tiger clan and Long Hui of the Dragon clan were left on the baptismal pool. From the moment Zhuowen entered the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond, he had no intention of letting these 2 people go. Hu Teng and Long Hui naturally felt Zhuowen's unfriendly gaze. Both of them immediately put on alert and stared at Zhuowen. The scene of Zhuo, when domineeringly annihilating Wu Wenbin earlier, was still vivid in their minds even now. Their strength was on par with Wu Wenbin. Since Long One could easily kill Wu Wenbin, it was naturally more than enough to deal with the 2 of them. Bang! At this moment, Wu Xingyuan and Purple Star Sovereign clashed violently. Terrifying energy ripples burst out, giving rise to a blazing and glaring light that spread in all directions. Thump! 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 Both Wu Xingyuan and Purple Star Sovereign retreated dozens of steps. However, Wu Xingyuan was obviously at a disadvantage. His face was pale. Wu Xingyuan was shocked. He stared at Purple Star Sovereign and said in a deep voice, "Your cultivation is actually at the late stage of the sky-piercing master." All the geniuses in the baptismal pool were shocked. They couldn't believe Wu Xingyuan's words. A mere disciple of a small clan, Purple Star was actually at the late stage of the sky-piercing master. This was equivalent to the strength of their respective clan leaders. How was this possible? When Wu Xingyuan was at a disadvantage just now, they naturally saw it with their own eyes. Wu Xingyuan was a mid-stage sky-piercing master expert. His strength was much stronger than the average mid-stage sky-piercing master expert. Only a late-stage sky-piercing master expert could suppress him. Since Purple Star could make Wu Xingyuan fall into a disadvantage, it was obvious that he was a late-stage sky-piercing master expert. Long Hui and Hu Teng were dumbstruck. They were truly terrified. With Long Wen's strength and Purple Star's late-stage sky-piercing master expert, they were going to crush all the geniuses present. Come out and die. Zhuowen stood at the edge of the baptismal pool, looking at Long Hui and Hu Teng. Long Hui and Hu Ting looked at each other. They could see that Long Wen wanted to kill them, so they could only fight with their lives on the line. In any case, they were both early-stage sky-piercing master experts. When they joined forces, their strength was not bad. Long Wen might not be a match for the 2 of them. You die for me. Hu Teng and Long Hui rushed out, splitting into 2 directions, and flanked Zhuowen. One in front and one behind, they cooperated well. Long Hui's entire body emitted a blazing light, and a powerful and terrifying dragon shadow appeared around him. It was as if he was a giant dragon that had existed since ancient times. Hu Teng was enveloped by a huge tiger shadow, like a huge tiger coming down the mountain to hunt. The tiger's roar shook the sky, and the wind was bitingly cold. A dragon and a tiger, intertwined with each other, with the power to destroy heaven and earth. They quickly surrounded Zhuowen and slammed into each other. Instantly, it was as if a dragon and a tiger were fighting. A terrifying explosion erupted in the surroundings, and Zhuowen was at the center of the explosion. The power was vast and mighty, completely drowning Zhuowen. This kid is dead for sure. In the midst of Long Hu's explosion, Hu Teng and Long Hui looked at each other and smiled. Under their combined attacks, they didn't think that Long Wen could survive. So this is your final attack? You can't even withstand a single blow. An indifferent voice rang out from the center of the explosion. Then, a figure slowly walked out. Hu Teng and Long Hui sucked in a breath of cold air when they saw the figure. The figure was none other than Zhuowen. The mysterious light of creation circulated around Zhuowen's body, resisting the terrifying explosion around him. His body was unscathed, and there was not a speck of dust on him. Retreat. Hu Teng and Long Hui knew that things were not going well. They quickly retreated, wanting to get away from Zhuowen. Unfortunately, how could Zhuowen let them do as they wished? Zhuowen clenched his hands and used the sky-splitting blade, Ultimacy. A dazzling white blade shadow appeared in each of his hands. Whoosh. Chapter 3360. Escape Puqi. Hu Teng and Long Hui were directly penetrated and nailed to the ground. They struggled, but could not break free. Ever since he advanced to half-step 8-star, the might of Zhuowen's sky-opening blade had once again risen by a level. Wanting to block this sky-opening blade with just Hu Teng and Long Hui was simply wishful thinking. Zhuowen slowly came in front of Hu Teng and Long Hui and looked down at them indifferently. Long Wen, we have the dragon race and black tiger race behind us. If you don't want to die, it's best not to offend us. Don't kill us or you will regret it. Long Hui shouted. He smelled the scent of death. You want me to regret it? With the dragon race and black tiger race behind you, I even killed Shifu of the corpse race and Feng Bumming of the phoenix people. 2 more of you won't make much of a difference. Die for me. Zhuowen sneered again and again. His hands formed sword fingers and quickly pointed at Long Hui and Hu Teng's forehead. Puqi. Long Hui and Hu Teng's forehead exploded with bloody holes. Then their vitality completely dissipated into nothingness. After Zhuowen killed Long Hui and Hu Teng, he noticed that the battle between the Purple Star Sovereign and Wu Xingyuan had reached its climax. Although Wu Xingyuan had been at a disadvantage in the beginning of the battle with Crepe, Myrtle Starlord, he had been at a disadvantage. But later, Wu Xingyuan unleashed the power of an 8-star wizard body. Coupled with the cultivation of a mid-stage Tongtian lord, his strength actually rose by a large margin. He was actually evenly matched with an expert like Crepe Myrtle Star. It was precisely because the battle between Wu Xingyuan and the Purple Star Sovereign was too earth-shattering. The attention of the other geniuses was all attracted by the battle between the two and ignored Zhuowen. As a result, they did not notice that Zhuowen had killed Hu Teng and Long Hui. This Wu Xingyuan is really extraordinary. He is actually evenly matched with Brother Purple Star. Zhuowen's eyes were grave. He knew how powerful the Purple Star Sovereign was. Although Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign had just advanced to the late stage of the sky-reaching Master Realm, he had obtained the inheritance of the Undying Bird. His battle prowess was earth-shattering. Back then, the Phoenix Master of the Phoenix people, Feng Liluo, a veteran late-stage Heaven Ascension Master, was only able to suppress the Purple Star Sovereign. It was simply impossible for her to kill him. However, Wu Xingyuan was only a middle-stage Master of Heaven. yet he was evenly matched with Crepe Myrtle's star monarch. From this, one could see how powerful Wu Xingyuan was. Zhuowen knew that with Wu Xingyuan and Crepe Myrtle's star monarch's condition, it would be impossible to determine the victor if they continued to fight. Zhuowen took out the Ho-I Divine Arrow and Ho-I Divine Bow. He knocked the arrow on the bowstring and pulled the bowstring to 3/4 of an arc rumble. A thunderous sound exploded in the air. The Ho-I Godly Arrow and Ho-I Godly Bow suddenly exploded with a terrifying sound, bringing with them shocking killing intent. This killing intent was too terrifying. Like a tide, it instantly flooded the entire valley. The other geniuses, who were originally focused on the battle between Crepe Myrtle's star monarch and Wu Xingyuan, all sensed this killing intent. Their gazes fell on the Ho-I Godly Arrow and Ho-I Godly Bow in Zhuowen's hands. That's the Ho-I Godly Arrow. Longwen actually has such a treasure. Wu Qiutong blurted out when she recognized the Ho-I Godly Arrow. This guy doesn't just have the Ho-I Godly Arrow, he also has the Ho-I Godly Bow. This guy's luck is too great. He actually has the complete divine artifact of the most powerful Wu Hoi. It's extremely powerful. He's going to support Purple Star. Tu Qian of the Moonwolf clan said with a grave expression. The remaining space-time beast clans Xiukong and giant turtle clans Xianggui didn't dare to speak at all. They looked at Zhuowen with fear. This was because not only did they notice the Ho-I Godly Bow and Ho-I Godly Arrow in Zhuowen's hands, but they also noticed the dead bodies of Long Hui and Hutung not far from Zhuowen's feet. It hadn't been long, but Longwen had already killed Long Hui and Hutung. This was too efficient. Wu Xingyuan, who was fighting with Purple Star Monarch, also felt the terrifying killing intent. This murderous intent was like a tidal wave, sweeping over from all directions, drowning his entire being, as if it had blocked all his escape routes. The pressure was so strong that Wu Xingyuan immediately began to retreat. Unfortunately, Purple Star Monarch wouldn't let go of this opportunity. He suddenly stepped forward and entangled Wu Xingyuan, making Wu Xingyuan an obedient target for Zhuowen. Whoosh! The moment Wu Xingyuan was entangled by Purple Star Monarch, a terrifying, air-piercing sound instantly resounded. Then, Zhuowen released the bowstring, and the Ho-I Godly Arrow pierced through the sky, instantly arriving in front of Wu Xingyuan with unparalleled killing intent. Wu Xingyuan suddenly shouted, clenching his right hand into a fist and punching out. The air exploded, and a powerful airflow accompanied by energy formed an extremely terrifying phantom behind him. This illusory figure was the illusory figure of a giant. It was at least 10,000 zhang tall, and it shook the heavens and earth. The terrifying pressure formed a terrifying storm that crushed down on the entire valley. Boom! The moment the fist collided with the Ho-I Godly Arrow, an extremely terrifying explosion erupted. Puchi! Unfortunately, the Ho-I Godly Arrow was too terrifying, and it tore apart the giant phantom behind Wu Xingyuan. Moreover, the Godly Arrow pierced through Wu Xingyuan's right arm in a spurt of energy, causing his right arm to explode into a cloud of blood mist that was annihilated in the void. Wu Xingyuan spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face was unbelievably pale. Purple Star Monarch took advantage of this opportunity to instantly approach Wu Xingyuan, clenching his right fist. He ruthlessly punched Wu Xingyuan's chest. Wu Xingyuan raised his other arm, as if he was about to block Purple Star Monarch's attack. Unfortunately, he was too hasty, so his left arm was fractured, and he rapidly fell down like a meteor. Longwen, I will remember you. I, Wu Xingyuan, swear that I will not rest until you are dead. The moment Wu Xingyuan fell into the ground, he took out a golden talisman and crushed it. With a whoosh, the moment the talisman was crushed, Wu Xingyuan instantly disappeared from the valley. It's an escape talisman, and an extremely advanced one. Purple Star Monarch landed at the place where Wu Xingyuan fell, and his eyes were solemn as he spoke to Zhuowen. Zhuowen nodded and put away the Ho-I Godly bow and Ho-I Godly arrow. Wu Xingyuan deserved to be called the #1 genius of the sorcerer tribe. He was so powerful that even Purple Star Monarch could not take him down. In the end, he and Purple Star Monarch joined forces to severely injure him. This made Zhuowen think highly of Wu Xingyuan. The world of the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond is self-contained and isolated from the outside world. No matter how powerful Wu Xingyuan's escape talisman is, it is impossible for him to directly tear apart this small world and leave here to reach the outside world. Wu Xingyuan should be hiding somewhere in this small world. Should we go and search for him? Purple Star Monarch looked at Zhuowen and asked in a deep voice, "No need. I still have important business to attend to. Wu Xingyuan will eventually come across us. When that time comes, I will kill him." Zhuowen shook his head and said, Chapter 33:61. 3 venomous insects at this moment. Only Tu Qian from the Moonwolf clan, Wu Qiutong from the Nine-Tailed Fox clan, Xiang Gui from the Giant Tortoise clan, Xiao Kong from the Space-Time Beast clan, and Jingshan were left in the baptismal pool. Apart from Jingshan, the other 4 geniuses stayed far away from Zhuowen. Their eyes were filled with dread as they looked at Zhuowen. Jingshan walked to Zhuowen with a smile and said, "Fellow cultivator Long, you really hid your strength well. I didn't expect you to have such powerful strength. Jingshan underestimated you. You are indeed the person I chose. Fellow cultivator Jingshan, I still have some things to do. I will discuss with you about the teleportation formation after I'm done with it," Zhuowen said and pointed to the baptismal pool next to him. The ancestral sorcerer power in the baptismal pool is very strong. You can cultivate in the baptismal pool during this period. After saying that, Zhuowen looked at Tu Qian and the other 3, who were not far away with fear in their eyes, and said, "Fellow cultivators, I attacked just now because the 3 geniuses of the sorcerer clan were too overbearing and wanted to kill me. Since they bullied me, I, Zhuowen, am not a pushover, so I return an eye for an eye. As for Hu Tong and Long Hui, it was because their clans wronged me first, so I took some interest from them. I have no enmity with you, so I will not target you. You can continue with the baptismal pool. I will take my leave first." Zhuowen smiled kindly at Tu Qian and the other 3, then flew to the sky above the baptismal pool. Although Zhuowen was decisive and ruthless, he was not stupid. The Sorcerer Tribe, Corpse Ghost Tribe, Black Tiger Tribe, Dragon Tribe, Phoenix Tribe, and Mermaid Tribe had openly opposed him and even made a move on him. They already had great enmity with him, so Zhuowen naturally wouldn't be nice to these 6 tribes. He would kill if he could. However, the Moonwolf race, Nine-Tailed Fox race, Giant Tortoise race, and Space-Time Beast race had not done anything to Zhuowen, nor did they have any enmity with him. Naturally, Zhuowen would not become enemies with these 4 races for no reason. Although he was confident that his Pango's sacred body had improved further and his strength was invincible, he would be courting death if he offended the top 10 races of the untainted heavenly realm at the same time. After all, the Wu tribe alone was enough for him to deal with. Tu Qian, Wu Qiutong, and the others looked at each other. They still found it somewhat hard to believe that Long would actually let him go just like that. Tu Qian was very decisive. He understood Zhuowen's intentions. He knew that Zhuowen didn't want to offend them and the races behind them, so he jumped into the baptismal pool and began to cultivate to his heart's content. Entering the ancestral shaman miraculous pool and being cleansed by the ancestral shaman energy was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to them, and he wouldn't let this opportunity slip away from his hands for nothing. Wu Qiutong and the other 2 also came to their senses and understood Zhuowen's meaning. They no longer had any misgivings and jumped into the baptismal pool. However, in their hearts, they were certain that they would never casually provoke Long One in the future. Otherwise, they were afraid that they would be in big trouble. After all, Long One had repeatedly exceeded their expectations. Not only did he use some means to sneak into the ancestral shaman miraculous pool, but even the number one genius of the Wu tribe, Wu Xingyuan, was defeated by him. It was really unbelievable. When Jingshan saw Zhuowen rushing toward the baptismal pool, she thought of something and said in a deep voice, "Taoist friend Purple Star, is Taoist friend Long planning to get close to the 3 ancestral shaman corpses?" Purple Star Sovereign glanced at Jingshan and said lightly, "Taoist friend Jingshan, you'd better go back to the baptismal pool to cultivate first. Brother Long has his own purpose. We don't need to care about this." Jingshan frowned slightly. She was a little anxious. She wanted to follow Long One and see what he was doing. However, Crepe Myrtle Star was watching her closely. Just now, she had already seen the powerful strength of the Purple Star Sovereign. She knew that even if she used all her strength, she might not be able to escape from the Purple Star Sovereign. Moreover, she would offend the 2 terrifying experts, Zhuowen and the Purple Star Sovereign. After thinking about it again and again, Jingshan sighed and returned to the baptismal pool. However, she did not relax her divine sense and kept observing Zhuowen in the sky. Not only Jingshan, but Tu Qian and the others who were cultivating in the baptismal pool also separated a part of their divine sense and kept observing Zhuowen. They were also curious about what Zhuowen was up to. When Zhuowen approached the 3 ancestral shaman corpses, he noticed the divine sense of Jingshan and the others. A mocking smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He took out the beast bone array disc and set up a huge divine sense shielding array below him, blocking the divine sense of Jingshan and the others. Then, he began to crack the complicated restriction on the surface of the 3 ancestral shaman corpses. This guy is also a divine array master. He actually set up a shielding array. Moreover, this shielding array is of a very high level. It's definitely not simple. Jingshan muttered to herself with a solemn expression. After discovering that Zhuowen had casually set up a high-level shielding array, Jingshan was unable to calm down for a long time. She could not see through Long One anymore. The strength that Long One displayed was far beyond her expectations. Moreover, this guy was also a divine array master with such a high level. It was simply unreasonable. Tu Qian and the others were also shocked. They retracted their divine sense one after another. They knew that their divine sense had been discovered. If they continued to recklessly investigate, they would only make Long One unhappy. Time passed slowly. 2 days later, Zhuowen suddenly opened his eyes. The beast bone array disc that was hovering above him turned into a huge, impactful whirlpool and violently blasted on the restriction on the surface of the 3 ancestral shaman corpses. The restriction looked like fish scales. It actually formed layers upon layers of fragments that gave off dense light spots. It looked extremely gorgeous and dazzling in the air. Boom, boom, boom. In the end, the restriction on the surface of the 3 ancestral shaman corpses collapsed and were annihilated into nothingness. The huge explosion caused by the collapse sent Zhuowen flying. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face was extremely pale. Fortunately, Zhuowen had set up a defensive formation around him in advance. It blocked the impact caused by the explosion of the restriction. Otherwise, Zhuowen would be even more miserable than he was now. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, Zhuowen looked at the 3 ancestral shaman corpses that appeared in front of him with bright eyes. Zhuowen stomped his right foot and landed on one of the ancestral shaman corpses. This ancestral shaman corpse had the face of a human and the body of a tiger. It was covered in golden scales and had a pair of wings on its shoulder blades. It had a snake piercing through its left ear and 2 dragons under its feet. It was Ru Shou, one of the 12 ancestral shamans. Unfortunately, Ru Shou had already become a cold corpse. The 2 dragons under his feet and the fierce snake piercing through his left ear had already fallen. They had become cold corpses without any signs of life. Zhuowen's blood was boiling. The moment he approached Ru Shou, he sensed the aura of the ancestral shaman goo. It was the goo inside Ru Shou. However, Zhuowen was not in a hurry to capture the goo. He could sense that the goo in the 3 ancestral shaman corpses should be in a deep slumber. The ancestral shaman had fallen so long ago. If the goo wanted to survive, they could only choose to sleep to reduce the consumption of energy. Zhuowen knew very well that if he were to capture them now, the ancestral shaman goo would awaken and flee with all their might. When that happened, he might not be able to capture all of them. Chapter 3362. Complete subjugation. Zhuowen had set up 3 heaven-crossing trapping formations and 7 creation trapping formations. These 10 formations complemented each other and formed a cycle. They were like an indestructible wall, powerful and terrifying. After doing all this, Zhuowen stood on Rush's body again. He gently cut his finger and fresh blood dripped down. Then Zhuowen calmly stood in place and waited quietly. He knew very well how tempting his Pangu's sacred body's blood was to the ancestral sorcerer goo worms. The sleeping ancestral sorcerer goo worms in Rush's body would definitely wake up and crawl out after sensing the Panga's sacred body's blood. Sure enough, Zhuowen soon sensed the aura of Rushu's goo worms. A bloody hole suddenly appeared on Rushu's chest. A tiny black shadow, like a slender black lightning, streaked across the air and instantly arrived at the spot where Zhuowen's blood was dripping. Whoosh! What surprised Zhuowen was that other than Rush's goo worms, the goo worms in the other 2 ancestral sorcerer corpses also crawled out and rushed toward him like 2 bolts of lightning. For a moment, the 3 goo worms began to crazily compete for the drop of blood left by Zhuowen. Bang! 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 The 3 goo worms fought fiercely. The powerful energy ripples forced Zhuowen to retreat. Zhuowen looked at the scene in a daze. He did not expect a drop of Pangu's sacred body's blood to be so tempting to the ancestral sorcerer goo worms. It was beyond his imagination, but soon he realized that this was a wonderful opportunity. The 3 goo worms were not simple. They were very powerful. If he wanted to subdue them alone, he would not be able to do it in a short time. However, if the 3 goo worms fought each other and both sides were injured, Zhuowen would be the fisherman. The process of subduing them would be much simpler. Among the 3 goo worms, other than Rush's goo worms, the other 2 were Xianming goo worms and Qiangliang goo worms. However, in the process of the 3 goo worms fighting, Zhuowen could clearly see that the Rushu goo and the mysterious nether goo were suppressed. Rushu grasped the power of metal, Xianming grasped the power of rain, and Qiangliang grasped the power of lightning. Qiangliang goo was extremely powerful. As it flew, lightning punishment was unceasing. Lightning bolts filled the surrounding space, forming a terrifying and powerful lightning domain. The power of lightning was too terrifying. It was even more terrifying than the power of gold and rain. Thus, Xianming and Ru Shou, these 2 goo worms, were heavily suppressed, and their bodies were covered in injuries. Ru Shou goo and Xianming goo realized the strength of strong good goo and joined hands to deal with strong good goo. 2 against 1, they could only fight to a draw with a strong goo worm. Zhuowen stood far away, silently observing all of this. He did not make a move, but tried his best to conceal his aura, not intending to let these 3 goo worms sense his existence. Boom! 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 Suddenly, the the three goo worms collided fiercely. Strong good goo was ultimately no match for Ru Shou and the Xianming goo. It was covered in injuries and was sent flying, losing most of its combat strength. Ru Shou goo and the Xianming goo did not take advantage of the situation to pursue. Instead, they immediately attacked each other, fighting for the drop of Pangu's sacred body blood. Shuo, when quietly appeared the moment Changliang Gu, was repelled. His palm suddenly shot out and grabbed Changliang Gu in his hand. Strong Good Gu's body was covered in lightning, but unfortunately, it was too weak. The power of lightning it released could not do much damage to Zhuowen. Zhuowen did not spend too much effort to subdue Strong Good Gu. After imprisoning it, he threw it into the macro world. At the same time, the fight between Ru Shou Gu and the Xianming Gu reached a climax. Both Gu worms were exhausted and gradually fell into a decline. In the end, Ru Shou Gu was slightly better. It sent the Xianming Gu flying and madly pouncing on the drop of Pangu's sacred body blood. Unfortunately, just as the Rushu Gu reached the drop of blood essence, the blood essence was retracted by a palm. As for the other palm that blotted out the sky, it slammed the Rushu Gu to the ground. Ru Shou Gu screamed and was hit hard on the ground. It struggled with difficulty, but still could not get up. It was too tired. After subduing Ru Shou Gu, Zhuowen chased after the Xianming Gu, which realized that something was wrong and fled. Unfortunately, the Xianming Gu was in a bad state. Zhuowen caught up with it and almost killed it with one palm strike. He then caught it and threw it into the macro world. Phew! Finally, I have completely subdued these three ancestral sorcerer Gu. This time, the Pangu's sacred body has hope of advancing to the 8 stars. Zhuowen's eyes shone brightly as he muttered to himself excitedly. Zhuowen did not immediately refine the 3 ancestral sorcerer Gu. Instead, he removed the formation in the air and directly put the 3 ancestral sorcerer corpses into the macro world. Although Zhuowen's main goal was the ancestral sorcerer Gu, the energy in the corpses was still enormous, although there was not much left. Zhuowen planned to put the 3 ancestral sorcerer corpses in the macro world to constantly nourish the macro world and perfect the rules of the macro world. After doing all this, Zhuowen slowly landed on the shore of the baptismal pool. When Zhuowen put away the 3 ancestral sorcerer corpses, Jingshan, Tu Qian, and the others who were originally cultivating in the baptismal pool realized that something was wrong and suddenly opened their eyes. This was because they found that the energy in the baptismal pool was rapidly dissipating and eventually annihilating into nothingness. In other words, the baptismal pool had become a pool of wastewater with no energy to speak of. However, they soon found out why the baptismal pool had become like this. Their gazes all fell on the sky above the baptismal pool. They saw that it was empty. The 3 ancestral sorcerer corpses that were originally floating in the sky had disappeared. Everyone in the baptismal pool was stunned. They did not expect that the 3 ancestral sorcerer corpses would disappear without a trace. Fellow Taoist Long, you took away the 3 ancestral sorcerer corpses. Jingshan was the first to react. She looked at Zhuowen on the shore and asked in horror, "Fellow Taoist Long, this is the foundation of the sorcerer tribe. You actually took it away. I'm afraid the sorcerer tribe will do their best to hunt you down. I advise fellow Taoist Long not to do anything stupid." Tu Qian shook his head and advised Zhuowen, "Even if I didn't take away the 3 ancestral sorcerer corpses, the sorcerer tribe will not let me go. Since that's the case, why should I be so indecisive? If anyone is dissatisfied, you can express it. If you are willing to stand up for the sorcerer tribe, then I, Longwen, will accept it." Zhuowen sneered. On the other hand, Jingshan's face was gloomy. She looked at Zhuowen with a complicated gaze. She knew very well how complicated the restriction around the 3 ancestral sorcerer corpses was. It was a complicated restriction that Wu Wuxian had spent many years to set up. However, Longwen had only been there for a few days, and he had already cracked it and taken away the 3 ancestral sorcerer corpses. This was really terrifying. Chapter 3363. Teleportation Formation to Qian, Wu Qiudong, and the others looked at each other, not daring to answer Longwen directly. Although they tried to persuade Longwen to do so, they would rather not stand up for the sorcerer tribe. Zhuowen had shown such powerful strength just now, and they knew very well that if they were to go against Zhuowen, it would be like striking a stone with an egg. They were simply courting death. Even Jingshan fell silent. She could not see through Zhuowen, so she did not dare to offend Zhuowen, let alone stand on the opposite side of Zhuowen. Seeing that everyone was silent, Zhuowen shrugged, looked at Jingshan, and said, "How many days have passed since we entered the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond?" Jingshan said in a deep voice, 4 days. In 6 days, we will be teleported out of this space. There is still time. Since it's like that, then take me to that place. Zhuowen said. He had an agreement with Jingshan that there was a teleportation formation in the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond that was suspected to be the place where Pangu fell. Jingshan had sensed Pangu's aura on Zhuowen, so she planned to join forces with Zhuowen to activate the teleportation formation. Come with me. Jingshan nodded and led Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle's star out of the valley. However, before Zhuowen left, he warned Tu Qian, Wu Qiudong, and the others not to follow, or else he would not be polite to them. Tu Qian, Wu Qiudong, and the others naturally did not dare to follow, and they all agreed to follow. No matter how bold they were, they would not dare to go against Zhuowen, because that was simply courting death. Wu Xingyuan and the others were the best examples. After Jingshan led Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle's star out of the valley, they flew for half an hour outside and arrived at a forest that shone with bright starlight. The space where the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond was located should be a different dimensional space built by the sorcerer tribe. Everything in it was against common sense. This forest defied common sense because on the surface of the tree trunks grew not ordinary leaves, but resplendent starlight. Jingshan landed in the depths of the resplendent starlight forest. Over there was a very ordinary pond. The water in the pool was clear and transparent. It was precisely because this pool was too ordinary that it seemed out of place in this starlight forest. In the depths of the pool, there is an underground cave. The teleportation array is hidden in the underground cave. Jingshan pointed at the pool and said, "Fellow Taoist Jingshan, how did you find such a secretive place?" Purple Myrtle Star Monarch asked with a strange expression. "As I said before, I have a special ability. I can sense Panga's aura. When I first entered this space, I sensed Panga's aura. I followed that aura and found the underground grotto under the pool," Jingshan said. Zhuowen sneered in his heart. He knew that Jingshan was just making things up. However, with his current strength, he was not afraid of Jingshan playing any tricks in front of him. After all, if they could really find the place where Pangu fell, it would definitely be a great surprise for Zhuowen. "Let's go in." Jingshan glanced at Zhuowen and simply dived into the pool. Zhuowen and Purple Myrtle Star Monarch looked at each other and followed closely behind. Although they did not completely believe Jingshan's words, they knew that following her was the only strategy they could use. The pool was very deep. The 3 of them dived for half an incense stick's time before they finally found a tunnel at the bottom of the pool. Following the tunnel, they finally entered the underground grotto mentioned by Jingshan. The underground grotto was very large and gave people a sense of spaciousness. After entering the underground grotto, Jingshan led the way without saying a word. Since Jingshan did not say anything, Zhuowen and Purple Myrtle Star Monarch naturally did not try to start a conversation. Soon, Jingshan stopped and pointed to the front. This is the teleportation array I was talking about. Zhuowen looked in the direction Jingshan pointed and saw an open space in front of them. On the open space, there was a large circular pattern drawn. It was blood red in color and seemed to be drawn with blood. Around this formation, there were 12 bone spears. At the end of each bone spear, there was a skull inserted into it. The 12 skulls were grotesquely shaped and did not belong to the human clan. However, from the strong aura emitted from the skulls, it could be seen that the owners of the 12 skulls were definitely powerful experts in their previous lives. Zhuowen's gaze turned solemn. The moment he saw the 12 skulls, Zhuowen thought of sacrifices. These 12 experts should have been sacrificed alive to this array, when they were alive. Although it was a long time ago, the bloody aura lingered in the air for a long time and was filled with an ominous feeling. This array was definitely not simple. Zhuowen had never heard of an array that required sacrifices. This was the first time he had seen one in his life. However, Zhuowen was an array master after all. He could see that the pattern of the blood-red array was indeed a teleportation array. Moreover, it was a very advanced teleportation array. However, the way this teleportation array was used made him very uncomfortable. Fellow Taoist Jingshan, you have never opened this teleportation array. Why are you so sure that the destination of this teleportation array is the place where Pangu fell? Zhuowen looked at Jingshan in confusion and asked the question in his heart. I said that I felt the strong aura of Pangu. Even if the other end of this teleportation array is not the place where Pangu fell, it must be something related to Pangu. As the founder of this starry sky, anything related to Pangu must be extraordinary. Are you not interested in it, fellow Taoist, Long One? Jingshan said with a smile. I am indeed interested. However, to be honest, this Long has also studied array Tao. I also observed this teleportation array just now. I found that this teleportation array is very profound. I can't understand it at all, let alone find a way to open this teleportation array. Zhuowen said in a deep voice, Fellow Taoist Long, have you forgotten me? Although I am not proficient in array Tao, I have visited this place many times and recorded the appearance of this array. I have looked for many ancient books and array Tao masters. In the end, I found a way to open this teleportation array. Jingshan said excitedly. What way? Zhuowen asked with interest. This array needs a descendant of Panga's inheritance to open it with his blood, Jingshan said in a deep voice. You mean my blood is needed to open this teleportation array? You didn't mention this method before. Instead, you said that you couldn't do anything about this teleportation array. Let me check it out. Maybe I can find a way to open it. Zhuowen said with a frown. He felt that Jingshan's words were different, which made him secretly vigilant. Moreover, he secretly observed this teleportation array and found that there was a very obscure killing intent hidden in this teleportation array. This was definitely not an ordinary teleportation array. Chapter 3364. Sai, that's because I was afraid that you wouldn't believe me. So I lied to you before. In fact, I already knew the way to open this teleportation array, but I couldn't do it alone. I needed the blood of a successor of Panga's inheritance like you, fellow Taoist Long. Jingshan sighed softly. You're also a successor of Panga's inheritance? You also have Panga's inheritance? Zhuowen looked at Jingshan in amazement and blurted out, Yes, I also obtained a part of Panga's inheritance, which is why I could sense Panga's aura on you at a glance. Even if you used a clever concealment method, we are of the same origin and naturally have the same aura. So It's not strange that I could sense it. To tell you the truth, if I had obtained more of Panga's inheritance, I could also open this teleportation array by myself, but there's no other way. The inheritance I obtained is too little, so even if I released all my blood, I still wouldn't be able to open this teleportation array. But if you and I work together, opening this teleportation array will not be a problem at all. Jingshan said sincerely. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. He could see that the sincerity in Jingshan's eyes did not seem to be fake. Jingshan was very likely to have obtained a small part of Panga's inheritance, as she said, but because the inheritance was too little, her blood essence was not enough to open this teleportation array. Fellow Taoist Long, I know that you should still be suspicious of me. This is human nature. After all, I did deceive you at the beginning. Jingshan sighed softly, took out a dagger, and quickly wiped her right wrist, dripping blood, on the bright-colored teleportation array. The moment Jingshan's blood essence fell on the teleportation array, the blood-red teleportation array immediately lit up with a bright light, and an ancient and powerful aura suddenly burst out and spread throughout the entire underground grotto. Zhuowen was startled. He did not expect Jingshan to be the first to drip her blood essence, and her blood essence had indeed caused the teleportation array to surge, faintly showing signs of it being activated. I really didn't lie to you this time. This teleportation array really needs the blood essence of a successor of Panga's inheritance to open. Fellow Taoist Long, quickly help me. Otherwise, I won't be able to bear it. Jingshan's blood essence kept dripping on the teleportation array, causing the array's blood color to become even more bewitching, and the ancient aura emitted from the teleportation array's surface also became more and more intense. However, Jingshan's delicate body was trembling violently, and her face was pale without blood, like a bamboo pole that would fall with the wind. Her condition was very bad. Looking at Jingshan's SS teleportation array. He came to the teleportation array on the other side, took out Jingshan's hand's wrist, Jingshan, SS. The array, Jingshan suck TSSS, right? Jingshan, SSS, T-stop, SSS jinked. The T test, the this twos to this S. Zhuowen looked at Jingshan, who was opposite him, and found that Jingshan's SS complexion was also not looking good. Only then did he feel relieved and began to circulate his heavenly path energy to replenish this weakness caused by the excessive blood loss. However, as time passed, Zhuowen's SS expression became more and more solemn. He found that although the teleportation array's ancient aura was becoming more and more intense, it had not been activated yet. Instead, this blood essences was getting faster and faster, which made Zhuowen's SSSS turn, bang, bang, bang. Just as Zhuowen was in a daze, the skulls on the 12 bone spears that were inserted in 12 directions of the teleportation array burst open one after another, turning into a strange blood mist. This blood mist formed a long stream that swept out in an instant, sweeping towards Zhuowen. The blood mist's speed was so fast that it reached Zhuowen in an instant. Zhuowen only had time to use the profound creation mysterious light, before he was completely enveloped by the blood mist. Jingshan, who was bleeding, suddenly retreated. Her face was still pale, and she seemed to be at a loss. What's going on, Jingshan? Crepe Myrtle's star suddenly blasted a punch at the blood mist, but it was blocked by the blood mist. He could not help but stagger back as he looked at Jingshan with an unsightly expression and coldly shouted. Jingshan shook her head, her eyes full of panic, and said, I don't know what's going on either. I thought that by combining Mai's and Taoist Long's blood essence, we should be able to open this teleportation array. But I never thought that something like this would happen. I never expected this. Crepe Myrtle Star bombarded the blood mist dozens of times, but it was blocked by the blood mist every time. In the end, Crepe Myrtle Star gave up on forcibly breaking through the blood mist. Instead, he rushed to Jingshan's front, grabbed her collar, and angrily said, "You're the one who caused this. You must give me an explanation on how you're going to break through this blood mist and save my friend." "I don't know. I really don't know." Jingshan seemed to have lost her soul. She muttered to herself and trembled all over. Crepe Myrtle Star frowned slightly when he saw Jingshan's state, but he eventually let go of her. However, the moment he let go of Jingshan, a jade-like palm landed on Crepe Myrtle Star's chest like lightning. Uffed, Crepe Myrtle Star was caught off guard and was hit directly by the slender palm. The powerful shockwave caused Crepe Myrtle Star to spit out a mouthful of blood and fall to the ground in a sorry state. Crepe Myrtle Star looked at Jingshan in disbelief. At this moment, the panic on Jingshan's face had long disappeared. Her expression was very calm as she looked directly at Crepe Myrtle Star. "You planned all of this?" Crepe Myrtle Star was no fool. He quickly thought of some clues and asked in a low voice, "Haha, what else could it be? That Longwen is really too cautious, causing me to use some tricks. But fortunately, he still fell for it, and my tricks were not in vain." Jingshan said with a proud smile. Crepe Myrtle Star clutched his chest with an ugly expression. After being hit by Jingshan's palm, the power in his body began to become chaotic. It was like boiling water that kept moving around. It became much more difficult for him to circulate his energy. "Myrtle Star, your strength makes me very afraid. My chances of winning against a late-stage Skirich Lord are not very high, so I used a little trick on you. Today, you will die here." Jingshan laughed tenderly. She stomped her foot and rushed forward like a vigorous and cunning rabbit. In an instant, she closed in on Crepe Myrtle Star. Her jade-like palm was suffused with a blazing golden light as it blasted towards Crepe Myrtle Star. Crepe Myrtle Star punched out. When the fist and palm collided, an energy storm swept out and the surrounding ground nearly burst open. Uffed, Crepe Myrtle Star spat out a mouthful of blood and kept retreating. He found a different kind of energy in his body. This energy was constantly disintegrating his strength, causing his power to be in chaos. He could not even use 20% of his strength. "I have to leave first. Otherwise, I may die here." Chapter 3365. Charging for 8 stars. Zixing is so lucky to have obtained the inheritance of the undying bird. No wonder he's stronger than an ordinary late-stage Skirich master. Jingshan frowned slightly as she watched Crepe Myrtle Star disappear in an instant. Crepe Myrtle Star's last escape technique was too fast. It should be the most powerful escape technique in the inheritance of the undying bird. Jingshan had completely lost track of Crepe Myrtle Star and could not find him at all. "Forget it, Zixing has escaped. It won't affect my plan at all. As long as Longwen is left behind, it's the greatest success." Jingshan sneered as she looked at the spirit array and the blood mist that was constantly swirling around it. Within the blood mist, Zhuowen was firmly trapped. Jingshan was very confident that once Longwen was entangled by the blood mist, he would die without a doubt. At that time, she would be the one who would benefit the most, and everything that belonged to Pangu would be hers. Bang, bang, bang. In the blood fog, the mysterious light of creation around Zhuowen was constantly surging, forming layers of scale-like barriers to resist the invasion of the surrounding blood fog. However, the power of the blood mist was just too terrifying. The mysterious light of creation that revolved around Zhuowen constantly swayed and became somewhat illusory. Zhuowen knew that the mysterious light of creation would not last for long. At this moment, Zhuowen's face was very ugly. He did not expect Jingshan to deceive him. The teleportation formation was just a cover to lure him into a trap. However, Zhuowen could not figure out whether Jingshan's words about the place where Panga had fallen were true or whether Jingshan had been deceiving him from the beginning. Bang! Just as Zhuowen was lost in thought, the mysterious light of creation around him collapsed into countless light spots. The terrifying blood fog, which carried a strong smell of blood, suddenly drilled into Zhuowen's limbs and meridians. It seemed as if it intended to penetrate Zhuowen's entire body. Zhuowen's eyes were solemn as he began to circulate the energy around his body to resist the terrifying blood mist that was invading his surroundings. Unfortunately, his actions were completely futile. This blood fog was like looking at flowers in the fog. It was very illusory, and he could not destroy it at all. Every time he punched out, the blood mist in front of him would scatter like gravel, and then quickly enter Zhuowen's body through his acupoints, entering his body. When the blood mist entered Zhuowen's body, Zhuowen felt that his blood was greatly affected. His blood was no longer flowing smoothly, and the energy of the blood mist began to corrode his flesh, bones, and organs. Damn it, what the hell is this? It's actually corroding my flesh and blood. Zhuowen's forehead was covered in cold sweat as he muttered to himself in disbelief. This blood mist gave him the illusion that he was hitting water, and there was no way for him to borrow strength from. This made Zhuowen feel very helpless. Zhuowen used Gomang's power to rapidly heal his corroded flesh and blood. However, as more and more of the blood mist entered his body, even Gomang's power began to gradually weaken. As he used Gomang's power to resist the corrosion of the blood mist, Zhuowen used various methods in an attempt to break through the blood mist around him. Zhuowen even used trump cards like the Hoi Divine Arrow and the Yama Demon Portrait, but they all failed in the end. Although he managed to break through most of the blood mist, he was blocked by the blood mist in the end. All his efforts were for naught. This caused Zhuowen's expression to become extremely grave. He knew that, with his current strength, he was still somewhat lacking in breaking through the blood mist. Damn it, I can't continue like this. I'll definitely be toyed with to death by this blood mist. Zhuowen's expression was ugly. He knew very well that as more and more blood mist entered his body's recovery speed would definitely be surpassed by the speed of corrosion. When that time came, his body would be corroded beyond recognition, and that would also be the time of his death. With my current strength, it's still a little difficult to break through this blood mist barrier. However, if I can directly break through with the extraordinary power of the 8-star Panga sacred body, it should be possible to break through the surrounding blood mist barrier. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. He knew that at present, this was his only way. He could only break through. He was certain that he could break through the surrounding blood mist barrier. However, according to the current speed of the blood mist invading his body, Zhuowen knew that he would not be able to hold on for 3 days. He did not know if he could successfully break through after fusing with the ancestral sorcerer Gu within these 3 days. Although he was only half a step away from 8-star, this distance was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Let's go all out. I can only try. Zhuowen's eyes were filled with determination. He took out the Rushu Gu insect and fused it into his body, ignoring the Rushu Gu insect's struggle. The moment the Rushu Gu insect fused into his body, Zhuowen fully activated the energy of the Panga sacred body and began to rapidly absorb the Rushu Gu insect's energy. A cool feeling spread throughout Zhuowen's body, causing Zhuowen to look up to the sky and roar. That feeling filled his body and began to transform his Pangu sacred body. Blazing crystal light surged and erupted from Zhuowen's body. He was like a supreme Buddha, holy and flawless. The energy of the Rushu Gu insect was so abundant that it began to shake Zhuowen's realm. However, when Zhuowen gathered his strength and began to break through the realm, he always felt that there was a thick barrier in front of him, preventing him from going further. Zhuowen knew that this was a necessary obstacle to break through to 8-star. He did not think too much about it. Instead, he began to constantly refine the energy of the Rushugu insect. He knew that as long as he accumulated a certain amount of energy, he would naturally be able to break through the barrier of the realm and smoothly advance. Moreover, just in case, Zhuowen prepared the remaining Xianminggu insect and Changlianggu insect. If he still could not break through the barrier of the realm after refining the Rushugu insect, he would immediately fuse the 2 Gu insects into his body. In the past 2 days, the energy of the blood mist in Zhuowen's body became more and more terrifying. Moreover, the blood mist continued to pour into his body from the outside. Zhuowen's 5 viscera and 6 bowels had been completely corroded. Although Zhuowen looked unscathed, his internal organs were almost completely corroded. This was because Zhuowen had the Pangu's sacred body. If other cultivators were surrounded by this terrifying blood mist, they would definitely die within 2 hours. Break for me! Zhuowen roared. He had finally completely refined the energy of the Rushugu insect and began to break through to the 8-star realm. Boom! 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 Zhuowen's body resounded with a terrifying explosion like the 9 heavens' profound thunder. A terrifying aura swept out and dispersed the surrounding blood mist. Puff! Zhuowen suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His aura became extremely weak. At the same time, the blood mist that had been dispersed quickly flowed back into Zhuowen's body and began to corrode Zhuowen's flesh, blood, and bones. This time, Zhuowen failed to break through the realm. It was too difficult to break through to the 8-star realm. Zhuowen was half a step to the 8-star realm and had absorbed all the energy of an ancestral wizard Gu insect. However, he still failed. Zhuowen made a prompt decision and immediately fused the Xianminggu insect and Changlianggu insect into his body. He knew that there was not much time left for him. Chapter 3366. T. Obi reborn after Changliang and Xianming poisonous insects entered Zhuowen's body. Zhuowen's pale face suddenly became a little rosy, and his weak aura also became a little stronger. Another day passed, and Zhuowen's flesh and blood had been completely corroded. The skin on the surface had long festered, and only a skeleton was left. Moreover, the skeleton also began to gradually disappear under the cover of the blood mist. However, Zhuowen's head was intact, and his divine soul had not been destroyed. When all the flesh and bones below his head had melted, Zhuowen suddenly opened his eyes and let out a long howl. Along with the howl, a magnificent and terrifying aura burst out from Zhuowen's body. This aura was so terrifying that it was much more terrifying than Zhuowen's before. It was as if a qualitative change had occurred. Below Zhuowen's head, the flesh and bones that had melted began to gradually recover. In the end, Zhuowen's complete body was completely restored. Zhuowen stood up and his eyes flashed. He laughed and said, "Finally, I have broken through. I have finally broken through to the 8-star Pangu sacred body." Zhuowen had broken through to the 8-star Pangu sacred body, and the aura in his body was still soaring. This was because the energy provided by Changliang and Xianming poisonous insects was too strong, and a small part of it still remained in Zhuowen's body. Zhuowen suddenly punched out, and the surrounding blood mist, which was difficult to deal with, was swept up in waves. Some of the blood mist even directly collapsed. Moreover, Zhuowen's casual punch contained the energy fluctuations of Changliang, Xianming, and Rushou. These 3 energies were the power of thunder, the power of rain, and the power of gold. Of course, in addition to these 3 energies, Zhuowen's attack also contained the power of other ancestral sorcery poisonous insects that had integrated into his body, such as Zhurong's power of fire and Gonggong's power of water. Zhuowen's eyes were full of light. He knew that with the power of his 8-star Pangu's sacred body, he could shatter the bloody mist around him. However, he did not do so. He sat down cross-legged again. He planned to absorb all the remaining energy of the goo in his body. He planned to continue to break through the realm and directly upgrade his Pangu's sacred body from the 8-star early stage to the middle stage. He had used 3 ancestral sorcerer goo worms. 1 ancestral sorcerer goo worm was already very rare, let alone 3. Naturally, he was unwilling to waste the remaining ancestral sorcerer goo worm's energy. The surrounding blood mist was no longer able to affect Zhuowen. Any blood mist that got close to Zhuowen was completely suppressed by the powerful aura of his physical body, not daring to move at all. Another day passed, and it was also the 9th day since they entered the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond. Jingshan sat cross-legged beside the magic array and looked at the spherical blood mist floating above the magic array. She frowned. 4 days have passed, and Longwen is still alive. Isn't he too tenacious? Jingshan muttered to herself. She knew how terrifying the blood mist was. Even she could not last a day if she was wrapped in the blood mist. However, Longwen was wrapped in the blood mist. It had been 4 days, but the blood mist had not dissipated. This made Jingshan feel a little uneasy. Just when Jingshan was in a daze, the blood mist suddenly exploded. A terrifying aura, like gravity being magnified countless times, acted on the entire underground grotto. Jingshan snorted. The moment she came into contact with the aura, she retreated and her face turned extremely pale. When Jingshan raised her head to look at the place where the blood mist dissipated, she saw an indomitable figure. She was no stranger to this figure, because this figure was actually Longwen, who she thought would die. Longwen? How is this possible? You didn't die in the bloodthirsty ghost mist. This is impossible. Jingshan's beautiful eyes widened as she shouted in disbelief. Zhuowen looked down at Jingshan with cold eyes and said indifferently, "What's impossible? You, on the other hand, actually dared to scheme against me. You're really something." Jingshan's eyes turned gloomy. She quickly retreated. However, the moment she retreated, she felt a pain in her neck. Zhuowen had actually grabbed her neck. She mustered all the energy in her body and tried to break free from Zhuowen's grip. However, she realized that all her efforts were in vain. She could not break free at all. She was now like a doll in Zhuowen's hand and had completely lost her freedom. Only then did Jingshan notice that the aura on Zhuowen's body had become so powerful that it was actually suppressing her. You actually broke through in the bloodthirsty ghost mist?" Jingshan thought of something and could not help but shout. "Thanks to you, I did indeed break through in that bullshit blood mist," Zhuowen said coldly as he threw Jingshan to the ground. At the same time, he pointed his sword finger with his right hand, and a ray of brilliance swept out and entered Jingshan's body. Jingshan screamed as her body went limp on the ground. She looked at Zhuowen with resentment and screamed, "Longwen, you actually dared to cripple me? You conspired against me. I'm already being merciful by not killing you." Zhuowen's eyes were indifferent as he continued, "Tell me, why do you want to harm me?" Jingshan was in a daze as she collapsed on the ground. She turned a deaf ear to Zhuowen's question. Zhuowen frowned slightly and said, "Don't force me to search your soul." Jingshan still looked confused, as if she did not hear Zhuowen's words at all. Her cultivation was crippled and her future was bleak. She had nothing left to live for. Zhuowen shook his head. His right hand turned into a claw and pressed on Jingshan's head as he began to search her soul. After Zhuowen withdrew his hand, he threw Jingshan into the teleportation array. The blood mist that had been dispersed by Zhuowen was like a big mouth that swallowed Jingshan. Jing Shan let out a blood-curdling screech before she went completely silent. Zhuowen looked at the wriggling blood mist on the array. His face did not look good. Through Jing Shan's memories, Zhuowen knew that this array was indeed a teleportation array that led to a place related to Pangu. However, in order to activate this teleportation array, the life of a cultivator who had obtained a part of Pangu's inheritance must be sacrificed. After the life of the cultivator who had obtained Pangu's inheritance was sacrificed, it would form a blood-red teleportation card. With this blood-red teleportation card, the person who obtained it could activate it at any time and anywhere to enter the so-called place where Pangu had fallen. Of course, whether it was the place where Pangu had fallen was still to be verified. However, it was definitely a place related to Pangu. The inheritance of the cultivator who had been sacrificed would be engraved on the blood-red teleportation card. The person who obtained it would be able to obtain the part of Pangu's inheritance from the cultivator who had been sacrificed. This Jingshan is really scheming. She actually schemed against me from the beginning. Chapter 3367. The Hunchwoman caught the blood-red token falling from the sky. His divine thought fell on the token, and he was pleasantly surprised to find that he had indeed found a part of Pangu's inheritance in the token. He knew that the inheritance should be the part of Jingshan's inheritance. However, the inheritance that Jingshan had obtained was too little. It was less than 1/10 of the inheritance that Zhuowen had obtained. Moreover, the information about Pangu's inheritance that Jingshan had obtained was very lacking. Even the cultivation method of Pangu's sacred body was incomplete. However, the inheritance shown in the blood-red token was of great help to Zhuowen. It was a great supplement to the inheritance of Pangu in his body. It gave Zhuowen a more intuitive understanding of Pangu's power and a deeper understanding of the cultivation method of Pangu's sacred body. At the same time, Zhuowen also found that the blood-red token contained an extremely profound teleportation power. He believed that as long as he activated the token with his divine thought, the teleportation power would immediately bring him to the other side of the token. Although he did not know where the other side of the teleportation would be, it was definitely a place related to Pangu. It would be best if it was the place where Pangu had fallen, so that he could obtain the remaining inheritance of Pangu. Zhuowen did not immediately use the teleportation power in the token. He knew very well that the teleportation power would definitely be a life-saving measure at a critical moment. He had offended many people in the sorcerer tribe. With this token, his life would definitely be safe. Moreover, from Jingshan's memory, he knew that Crepe Star Sovereign had been seriously injured by Jingshan's sneak attack. Zhuowen was somewhat worried about Crepe Star Sovereign's safety. The energy that Jingshan had injected into Crepe Star Sovereign's body was not simple. It was extremely powerful and was one of Jingshan's trump cards. It was something that she had obtained from Pangu's inheritance. Although Crepe Star Sovereign had obtained the immortal bird's inheritance and was extremely extraordinary, he knew that it would be difficult for him to resist the erosion of that energy. Thinking of this, Zhuowen sent a message to Crepe Star Sovereign, asking for his location. However, after a long time, Crepe Star Sovereign did not reply. This made Zhuowen feel a sense of foreboding. In another day, the space of the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond will expel everyone here. I must find Brother Crepe Star Sovereign within a day. Zhuowen frowned slightly as he left the underground grotto. His powerful divine sense began to sweep out, searching the area on a large scale. Soon, Zhuowen arrived at the valley where the baptismal pool. He discovered 4 figures in the valley. They were Tu Qian from the Moonwolf clan, Wu Qiutong from the Nine-Tailed Fox clan, Xiang Gui from the Giant Turtle clan, and Xiu Kong from the Space-Time Beast clan. Zhuowen's divine sense swept over without restraint, and it naturally alarmed the 4 foreign race geniuses who were sitting cross-legged and cultivating. Translation, 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 translation. Translation, 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 translation. Translation, translation, lead translation, 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 translation. Translation, 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 translation. Translation. Zhuowen Star Sovereign. He landed in the valley, looked at the 4 foreign race geniuses, and asked calmly, "Brother Long, didn't Brother Crepe Star Sovereign leave with you? Did something happen?" Tu Qian of the Moonwolf clan cupped his fists and asked politely. Zhuowen Star Sovereign's eyes were cold. He reached out with his right hand, grabbed Tu Qian's neck, and lifted him up. "Brother Tu Qian, you should know something, right? You'd better tell me the truth. Otherwise, I don't mind having another corpse in my hands." Zhuowen Star Sovereign said coldly. When Tu Qian was talking to him, Zhuowen Star Sovereign could clearly see a strange light flashing in Tu Qian's eyes. Tu Qian wasn't the only one. The other 3 foreign race geniuses didn't dare to look him in the eye. He knew that the 4 of them might know the whereabouts of Crepe Myrtle's Star Monarch, but they didn't want to tell him. Tu Qian's pupils shrank. He kept struggling in Zhuowen Star Sovereign's hands, but all his efforts were in vain. Tu Qian was scared. He found that Long, when strength seemed to be stronger than a few days ago, he was pinched in his hand with a flip of his hand. Even moving was a luxury. Even a master of the late realm of Tongtian realm might not be able to do this. "Brother Long, don't be impulsive. I'll tell you the truth. I just hope you don't kill a good person." Tu Qian hurriedly said, "Cut the crap. Tell me what you know." Zhuowen Star Sovereign said impatiently. Tu Qian did not dare to hide anything. He told Long everything he knew. It turned out that after Crepe Star Sovereign was seriously injured by Jingshan, he left the underground grotto and came to this valley, in this ancestral sorcerer's magical pond. Only this valley had the richest heavenly energy. If Crepe Star Sovereign wanted to recover quickly, this valley was the best choice. When Crepe Star Sovereign came to the valley with serious injuries, Tu Qian and the others were surprised. They were all guessing who could cause such serious injuries to an expert like Crepe Star Sovereign. However, they also understood that Crepe Star Sovereign's cultivation was much higher than theirs, so they did not disturb him. Instead, they sat not far away and minded their own business. In this way, 3 days passed. Crepe Star Sovereign's condition was indeed worsening. His aura also became weaker than 3 days ago. It seemed that there was a powerful energy in Crepe Star Sovereign's body that was suppressing him. Although Crepe Star Sovereign's condition was not very good, Tu Qian and the others were still very afraid and did not act rashly. It was at this time that Wu Xingyuan returned to the valley. When he saw Crepe Star Sovereign in a very bad condition, he immediately wanted to kill him. Crepe Star Sovereign naturally could not sit still and wait for death. He made a prompt decision to escape from the valley. Wu Xingyuan followed closely behind and began to pursue Crepe Star Sovereign. Zhuowen threw Tu Qian to the ground and asked coldly, "Which direction did they escape in?" Tu Qian's face was pale. This time, he did not dare disobey Zhuowen and hurriedly pointed in a direction. Zhuowen was very decisive. He took out the space-time roulette and began to chase in the direction Tu Qian pointed in. He was a little anxious. He knew very well that after Crepe Star Sovereign was invaded by that strange energy, his strength would decline with the passage of time. He would definitely not be a match for Wu Xingyuan. This was because he could tell from Tu Qian's words that Wu Xingyuan's injuries seemed to be healed. Wu Xingyuan probably had an extremely high-grade healing medicine on him. Otherwise, it would be impossible for his heavily injured body to recover to its peak state in just a few days. At the thought of this, Zhuowen felt a little irritated. He was very worried about Crepe Star Sovereign's condition. He could not help but increase his speed to an extremely terrifying level. He used all his strength in a space quite far away from Zhuowen. Crepe Star Sovereign was fleeing in a rather sorry state. His face was pale and bloodless. His chest was dripping with blood, and his limbs and bones were badly damaged. Not far behind Crepe Star Sovereign, a figure with an aura as vast as the sea was rapidly chasing after him. This was a young man with a handsome face. His shoulder-length hair floated in the air like steel needles, and his body emitted a blazing light. He was like a rapidly moving blazing sun, scorching and bright as he hovered in the sky. He was very extraordinary. This young man was the #1 genius of the sorcerer race, Wu Xingyuan. Wu Xingyuan's eyes were cold as he looked at Crepe Star Sovereign, who was constantly fleeing in front of him. He sneered and said, "Purple Star, you also have a day like this. To be heavily injured by someone. How rare." Chapter 3368. In advance Wu Xingyuan was very confident. At the same time, he hated Zixing and long when to the point his teeth itched. He wished for nothing more than to pull out their tendons, flay their bones, and tear their bodies into pieces. Because of these two people, he was seriously injured and almost dead. In order to quickly recover, he swallowed the only healing panacea he had. He had accidentally obtained that healing panacea from a ruin. It was extremely precious and could quickly heal his injuries when he was on the verge of death. It could be said that it was his second life. Originally, he had planned to use this healing panacea in a grand battle in the future to make the best use of it. However, he had never expected that he would use it in a place like the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond. Moreover, he had not soaked in the baptismal pool for long, and his strength had even regressed. It was really a loss for him to use this healing panacea. How could Wu Xingyuan not be angry? Humph! Zixing, after I kill you, I will go and settle the score with Long One. That guy is sinister and cunning. If I fight him head-on, I will definitely beat him to death. Wu Xingyuan recalled that he had been severely injured by Zhuowen's arrow, and his face turned ugly. He had lost that battle unjustly. He had been entangled by a late-stage transcending heaven lord like Zixing Jun, and had become Long Wen's living target. It had been a very humiliating battle. At the same time, Wu Xingyuan was very afraid of Zhuowen's Ho-E Divine Arrow. He did not expect that Ho-E Divine Arrow would be so powerful that it could seriously injure him with one arrow. If he met Long Wen again, he would definitely not give him the chance to shoot Ho-E Divine Arrow. He would kill Long Wen as soon as he met him. Thinking of this, Wu Xingyuan made up his mind and slammed his palm across the air. Zixing Jun could not dodge in time and was hit by the palm. He vomited blood and fell. However, Zixing Jun was very agile. The moment he fell, his whole body was covered in black flames. With a whoosh, he escaped into the depths of the ground and continued to escape. Wu Xingyuan snorted coldly, stomped his right foot, and chased after him. At the same time, Wu Xingyuan's aura had completely locked onto Zixing Jun. He kept attacking, causing Zixing Jun's injuries to worsen. Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign's aura grew weaker and weaker. His gaze was gloomy. He never thought that things would come to this. It was all his fault for being too careless and getting ambushed by Jingshan. I wonder how Brother Zhua is doing. Myrtle Star Sovereign felt a little guilty. Back then, he had attempted to blast the blood mist, but even his full-strength strike had failed. Later on, he was ambushed by Jingshan and had no choice but to escape from the underground grotto. Until now, he still did not know how Zhuowen was doing. Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign, you can't even protect yourself, yet you're still thinking about the safety of others. You're really courting death. Just as Crepe Myrtle Star was thinking about Zhuowen in a daze, Wu Xingyuan had already arrived below him and kicked him in the chest. Puchi, Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign, only had time to put his hands in front of his chest. The kick was so powerful that it directly broke his hands. He spat out blood and was sent flying upside down. He broke through the soil and floated in the air like a parabola. Wu Xingyuan suddenly broke out of the ground and rushed to Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign's side. He held the hammer with both hands. Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign fell to the ground like a meteor. Wu Xingyuan landed on the ground and stomped hard on Crepe Myrtle Star Monarch's chest, making it impossible for him to move. Myrtle Star, to think that you would have such a day. You're dead. Wu Xingyuan laughed. Just as Wu Xingyuan was about to kill Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign, the surrounding space suddenly began to distort. A terrifying pushing force came from all directions, as if it was repelling Wu Xingyuan and Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign. The world of the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond is repelling me. There should still be a day left. Is it ending a day early? Wu Xingyuan frowned slightly and muttered to himself. He was very surprised. You're lucky. I won't kill you first. I'll imprison you. After leaving the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond, Longwen will naturally come out. When that time comes, I'll personally step on him and send the two of you to hell. Wu Xingyuan sneered. He opened his right hand, and a powerful black energy swept out. It turned into a rope and tied Wu Xingyuan up like a dumpling. Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign had already lost his ability to fight. He could only let Wu Xingyuan do what he wanted. The pushing force in the surrounding space grew stronger. Wu Xingyuan carried Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign and did not resist the pushing force. He began to leave the space. Tu Qian and the others in the valley also felt the pushing force that suddenly appeared. They also knew that their time in this world was up. They were being repelled. Zhuowen, who was frantically searching for Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign, also felt the powerful repelling force. His face turned ugly. He took a deep breath and relaxed his body. He knew very well that as long as he left this space, he would naturally meet Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign. What he was worried about now was whether Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign had fallen. If he did, he was afraid that he would not be able to return. However, no matter what the result was, Zhuowen had already sentenced Wu Xingyuan to death. There was no doubt that he would kill Wu Xingyuan. That's Wu Xingyuan? The moment Zhuowen relaxed his body, he saw a figure in the light in front of him. That figure was carrying a figure. The figure was very familiar. It was the number 1 genius of the sorcerer tribe, Wu Xingyuan. The moment Zhuowen saw Wu Xingyuan, he took a step forward and chased after the figure with the help of the pushing force. At this moment, a huge crack appeared in the sky above the guarded land. It was the entrance to the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond. Corpse Ian Marsh and the others looked at Wu Wuxian strangely. It had only been 9 days since Wu Xingyuan and the others entered the guarded land. Wu Wuxian had actually reopened the entrance to the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond. Was he planning to teleport Wu Xingyuan and the others out in advance? Grand Priestess, there's still 1 more day to the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond. What do you mean by this? Feng Liluo frowned and asked, I have an ominous feeling. There's something wrong with the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond. I have to open it and take a look. Wu Wuxian's face turned ugly. In fact, a few days ago, she felt that the seal she had placed on the surface of the 3 ancestral sorcerers' corpses in the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond seemed to have lost connection. This shocked her. She had personally placed the seal and spent many years on it. Logically speaking, no one should have been able to break it. However, she could not feel the aura of the seal. It was obvious that someone had broken it, if it was not for the space restriction of the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond. She would have opened it a few days ago. Chapter 3369. Exploding Wu Xingyuan within the space of the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond. The repulsive force became more and more terrifying. In the distance, a blazing white light appeared. Looking carefully, at the end of the blazing white light, there was a deep and dark black hole. The pitch-black hole was like a bottomless mouth that seemed to be able to swallow all matter. Wu Xingyuan carried the half-dead crepe myrtle star and looked at the black hole calmly. He knew that the black hole was the exit of the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond. Although the black hole was close, it was actually at the end of the space. He had to borrow the repulsive force of the space to get close to the black hole. Brother Xingyuan. Xingyuan! Suddenly, two voices came from the side. Wu Xingyuan turned around and saw the Moon Wolf clan's genius Tu Qian and the Nine-Tailed Fox clan's genius Wu Qiutong approaching him from the right. The two of them were also being pushed away by the repulsive force. However, they didn't look good. They frowned and looked worried. At the same time, they saw crepe myrtle star in Wu Xingyuan's hand, and the worry on their faces became more intense. What's wrong? Wu Xingyuan saw the strange expressions on Tu Qian and Wu Qiutong's faces and asked in surprise. Brother Xingyuan, Longwen came looking for you. I'm afraid he didn't come with good intentions. Now that you've kidnapped his friend Zixing, I'm afraid he won't let it go. Tu Qian sighed. Wu Xingyuan sneered. What's that, Longwen? Other than shooting arrows in the back, what other abilities does he have? He's just a coward. Wu Qiutong's beautiful eyes were filled with worry. She said in a deep voice, Xingyuan, don't be careless. Longwen's strength seems to have increased greatly. Brother Tu Qian was subdued by him in one move. His strength is definitely not simple. Oh, he subdued Brother Tu Qian in one move? Looks like he's made some progress, but I still don't take him seriously. Wu Xingyuan's eyes were filled with arrogance. He didn't take Longwen seriously at all. In Wu Xingyuan's eyes, even if Longwen's strength wasn't simple, he was definitely not his opponent. Back then, he had even been able to suppress a late-stage transcending heaven lord like the crepe myrtle star. He had investigated and found that the dragon rune was much weaker than the crepe myrtle star. Even if Longwen's strength had increased, it was impossible for him to be his opponent. He had this kind of confidence and did not fear Longwen at all. Instead, in his heart, he was looking forward to meeting Longwen and capturing him in one fell swoop. Tu Qian and Wu Qiutong looked at each other. Seeing Wu Xingyuan so confident, the worry in their hearts lessened greatly. They also realized that the person standing in front of them was not an ordinary genius. He was the #1 genius of the sorcerer tribe, a monster who could look down on the entire primitive heaven realm. No matter how extraordinary that dragon rune was, could it be that Wu Xingyuan had left? If it was a one-on-one fight, Wu Xingyuan did not even place this late-stage heavenly master in his eyes, let alone that long one. Brother Xingyuan, you're right. I was rash just now. With Brother Xingyuan's strength, if that long one came over, it would truly be seeking death. Tu Qian said rather embarrassedly. He. That's true. Xingyuan is the #1 genius of the sorcerer tribe, and he even has a powerful sorcerer body. We were careless because we cared too much. That's why we were rash just now. Wu Qiutong chuckled and looked at Wu Xingyuan with a blushing face. Wu Xingyuan held Zi Wei Star Lord in his left hand and placed his right hand behind his back. His eyes were filled with arrogance. That Longwen is just a coward. His friend is in trouble, but he plays the game of vanishing into thin air. I wonder where he is hiding. However, we are about to leave the ancestral sorcerer magical pond. Even if Longwen can hide, he can't hide anymore. At that time, I will personally capture him and kill him in front of countless people, Wu Xingyuan said proudly. Tu Qian and Wu Qiudong nodded. They were also infected by Wu Xingyuan's confidence. They felt that so what if Longwen's strength had increased greatly? He would not be Wu Xingyuan's opponent. Oh, you want to kill me in front of everyone? Are you sure? Suddenly, a faintly discernible voice slowly came over. Wu Xingyuan's eyes slowly narrowed. He raised his head and turned around. He saw Zhuowen, who was dressed in black, walking over slowly. His eyes were filled with coldness, provocation, and contempt. Seeing Zhuowen's attitude, Wu Xingyuan snorted coldly. His face was a little ugly. He said, I really didn't expect that you would dare to come after seeing me here instead of hiding. I really admire your courage. Tu Qian and Wu Qiudong's faces changed slightly. They secretly stepped back and stared at Zhuowen with vigilance. Zhuowen's combat strength had left a deep impression on them. They knew that the two of them were absolutely no match for Zhuowen. Zhuowen ignored Tu Qian and Wu Qiudong's actions. Instead, he looked at Ziwei Star Lord in Wu Xingyuan's hand and said coldly, Put him down, and I can let you die a quick death. Wu Xingyuan was stunned. He immediately laughed and said, Let me die a quick death? Longwen, you're too arrogant. Do you really think that I can't restrain you? If not for your sneak attack earlier, you and Ziwei would have long been two corpses. Then I wouldn't have allowed you to be arrogant in front of me now. However, it's very good now, taking the initiative to come and die. It saves me from finding trouble with you. Wu Xingyuan was very conceited. He looked at Zhuowen with a cold gaze, full of confidence that victory was in his hands. He did not put Zhuowen in his eyes at all. I won't talk nonsense with you either. Die for me. Zhuowen shook his head and stomped his right foot. Terrifying ripples suddenly appeared in the surrounding space. This was a terrifying phenomenon caused by a tremendous energy explosion. Zhuowen could actually cause such a huge uproar with just a stomp. It could be seen how terrifying and powerful this Zhuowen was. In an instant, Zhuowen disappeared on the spot and already appeared in front of Wu Xingyuan. Wu Xingyuan's eyes narrowed slightly. Zhuowen's speed was so fast that it actually made him a little dizzy. But he was also not an ordinary person. The moment Zhuowen swept in front of him, his right hand formed into a fist and still blasted out. The cultivation of the middle stage, Tong Tian, Lord, plus the power of the 8-star wizard body was extremely terrifying. When the fist and palm collided, the aftershock was like an explosion of clouds and mist spreading out in all directions. It was exceptionally terrifying and shocking. Tu Qian and Wu Qiudong both could not withstand it and hurriedly retreated. Their gazes were solemn as they looked at the two figures that were already covered by the aftershock and could not be seen clearly. Zhuowen's strength was so powerful that it somewhat exceeded their expectations. Just this move could actually burst out such a terrifying aura. It actually had the tendency to be on par with Wu Xingyuan. The moment Wu Xingyuan's fist came into contact with Zhuowen, he immediately realized that something was wrong. Chapter 3370. Retreat. That was the only thought in Wu Xingyuan's mind. He had underestimated Longwen. He knew that Longwen was very powerful and was probably stronger than him. He could not continue to fight him head-on. However, just as Wu Xingyuan was about to retreat, a palm turned into a claw and quickly grabbed his left arm. With a sudden squeeze, Wu Xingyuan's left arm was directly twisted. Wu Xingyuan cried out in pain and immediately let go of his left hand that was holding Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign and quickly retreated. Zhuowen took Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign and did not chase after Wu Xingyuan. Instead, he checked on Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign's condition. What made him heave a sigh of relief was that although Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign was severely injured, he was not dead and still had a breath of life. Zhuowen took out a healing divine pill and fed it to Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign. Then he sent Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign into the macro world. After he instructed Ghost Plume and Yin Wuxie in the macro world to take care of Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign, he rushed out of the aftermath of the battle and chased after Wu Xingyuan, who was escaping. I wonder how the battle between Xingyuan and Long Wen went. I really did not expect Long Wen to be so powerful that he could fight with Xingyuan for so long, Wu Qiutong said with a frown. Long Wen is indeed powerful. However, Brother Xingyuan is even more powerful. Long Wen will definitely be killed by Brother Xingyuan. There is no doubt about that, Tu Qian said in a deep voice. While the two of them were discussing, a rather miserable figure suddenly rushed out from the aftermath of the battle. The two of them looked over and realized that the figure was actually Wu Xingyuan. What made the two of them even more stunned was that Wu Xingyuan's current condition was very bad. Wu Xingyuan's right hand was directly blasted into a bloody mist and completely disappeared. As for his left arm, it was twisted beyond recognition. It was probably crippled. Seeing Wu Xingyuan's miserable state, Tu Qian and Wu Qiutong both opened their mouths wide and were speechless. Long Wen's strength is really extraordinary. Before he died, he could actually make Brother Xingyuan so miserable. Tu Qian shook his head and said solemnly. Wu Qiutong nodded. Wu Xingyuan's miserable state really shocked the two of them. However, the two people both thought that Wu Xingyuan only paid such a price after finishing off Long Wen. In the hearts of the two, the scale of victory was still tilted towards Wu Xingyuan. They simply could not imagine that Wu Xingyuan was beaten to such a state by Long Wen and could only escape. They were too confident in Wu Xingyuan. As soon as Wu Xingyuan left the range of the aftermath, he fled toward the hole in the distance with a panicked expression. He was very shocked in his heart, and there was also a trace of regret. He truly did not expect that Long Wen's strength would actually be so terrifying, crippling his right arm with a single move. Just from that one exchange of blows earlier, Wu Xingyuan knew that he was completely not Long Wen's match. I have to leave this place as soon as possible. As long as I leave this place and reach the main hall of the shaman tribe, I will be safe. At that time, the high priest will help me destroy Long Wen. Wu Xingyuan thought fiercely in his heart, but his speed became faster and faster. After Zhuowen flew out of the range of the aftermath, he saw Wu Qiutong and Tu Qian, who were in a daze. He ignored the two of them and chased after Wu Xingyuan directly. Wu Xingyuan, didn't you claim to be the #1 genius in the primitive heavenly region? Now, you are actually fleeing in panic like a stray dog. Don't you feel ashamed? Zhuowen's calm voice was heard. Tu Qian and Wu Qiutong immediately came back to their senses and looked at Long Wen, who was chasing after Wu Xingyuan, speechlessly. Oh my God! Brother Xingyuan is actually not Long Wen's match. How long has it been, and he was defeated? Did he use one move or two moves? Tu Qian opened his mouth and finally said such a sentence. Wu Qiutong also felt that it was unbelievable, but she had to believe that what she saw before her eyes was the truth. Wu Xingyuan was really defeated. Moreover, he was chased by Long Wen like a stray dog. It was too embarrassing. Zhuowen's voice was very loud. Wu Xingyuan naturally heard it clearly. His eyes revealed a look of humiliation, but the speed of his feet was extremely fast. He swore in his heart that after leaving the space of this ancestor-sorcerer magical pool, he would definitely let the high priest take action personally and exterminate this arrogant Long One. Humph! Almost there. After going out, it will be Long Wen's time of death. There are many experts in the sorcerer tribe. This Long One is dead for sure. Wu Xingyuan saw the black hole that was close at hand. He let out a breath lightly. He knew that he could leave the ancestor-sorcerer magical pool after entering this black hole. He did not even think and plunged into the interior of the black hole. Not long after Wu Xingyuan entered, Zhuowen already rushed over. He laughed coldly and said, "Wu Xingyuan, you can't escape. You're dead meat." Saying that, Zhuowen also entered the black hole head first. Following Wu Xingyuan's aura, he chased over swiftly. Not long after Zhuowen and Wu Xingyuan entered the black hole, Tu Qian and Wu Qiutong also rushed over. The two of them looked at each other, both revealing worried looks. They also plunged into the black hole. In the guardian ground where the sorcerer tribe's main hall was, the high priest of the sorcerer tribe, Wu Wuxian, stood in front of the various tribe leaders. Her beautiful eyes stared at the whirlpool floating in the air. That was the exit of the ancestor-sorcerer magical pool. The ominous feeling in her heart grew stronger. She did not know what had happened in the ancestor-sorcerer space that made her feel so uneasy. She planned to wait for Wu Xingyuan to come out and properly ask him what had happened in the ancestor-sorcerer magical pool. Wu Wuxian did not speak. Corpse E. Marsh and the other tribe leaders also remained silent. They did not dare to speak carelessly. Suddenly, a figure swept out from the whirlpool in the air. When everyone saw the figure's true appearance, they were not surprised, because the first to come out was the number one genius of the sorcerer tribe, Wu Xingyuan. Everyone knew that Wu Xingyuan was powerful. Now that Wu Xingyuan was the first to walk out of the ancestor-sorcerer magical pool, this was naturally the most normal thing. However, people quickly realized that Wu Xingyuan was not in a good state. His right arm was gone, and his left arm was twisted. His hair was disheveled, and he was in a bad state. Moreover, they could also see that Wu Xingyuan's eyes were filled with panic, as if something was chasing after him. The moment Wu Wuxian saw Wu Xingyuan's state, her eyes darkened. Just as she was about to scold Wu Xingyuan, another figure suddenly rushed out of the whirlpool. The moment the figure swept out of the whirlpool, it rushed towards Wu Xingyuan. Wu Xingyuan's eyes were filled with fear. He immediately turned around, intending to block the figure. Poof! Unfortunately, Wu Xingyuan was not this figure's opponent at all, and was actually sent flying out by the impact. The figure caught up with Wu Xingyuan and grabbed Wu Xingyuan's neck with one hand. With a sudden force, Wu Xingyuan's neck was broken. However, the figure did not stop there. He pointed a finger, and it landed on Wu Xingyuan's forehead. Wu Xingyuan looked up to the sky and screamed. Then he suddenly stopped. His head tilted to one side, and he completely stopped breathing. He died just like that. Wu Wuxian's eyes widened. The moment her gaze fell on the figure's face, her expression was very interesting. Chapter 3371. Zhuowen casually tossed Wu Xingyuan's corpse to the ground. Bang! The sound of the corpse colliding with the ground reverberated in the space, causing everyone's eyes to focus on Wu Xingyuan, who had already become a corpse. Wu Wuxian was stunned. She stared at Wu Xingyuan's corpse, her heart filled with rage. She looked at Zhuowen in the sky, wanting nothing more than to destroy Zhuowen. Whoosh! 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 Not long after Zhuowen killed Wu Xingyuan, Tu Qian and Wu Qiutong came out of the vortex. They glanced at Zhuowen, but were quickly attracted by Wu Xingyuan's corpse on the ground. "Brother Xingyuan, he's dead?" Tu Qian stared at Wu Xingyuan's corpse in shock. Wu Qiutong was even more dispirited. She had always liked Wu Xingyuan. Now that Wu Xingyuan had died in front of her, she was naturally very depressed. After Tu Qian and Wu Qiutong, Xiao Kong of the space-time beast race and Xiang Gui of the giant turtle race also came out of the vortex. They also saw Wu Xingyuan's corpse and were so shocked that their bodies stiffened. They stood motionless on the spot. Soon, their eyes fell on Zhuowen, who was not far away. They all guessed that Wu Xingyuan's death was caused by Zhuowen. Zhuowen ignored the gazes of Tu Qian and the others. The four of them were no threat to him. His gaze fell on Wu Wuxian, the high priest below. He did not avoid looking at Wu Wuxian. He could feel that Wu Wuxian was very powerful, although her cultivation was also at the late stage of the Skirich Master Realm. She was much stronger than the patriarchs of the major races. She was probably not far from the peak of the Skirich Master Realm. This kid is really arrogant. Wu Wuxian was furious. She did not expect Zhuowen to be so bold. He killed Wu Xingyuan and still looked her in the eye. Was this a slap to her face? Just as Wu Wuxian was about to teach Zhuowen a lesson, Shi Yinquan, who was standing beside him, stopped him. Grand Priest, this Longwen is treacherous and deserves death indeed. However, we should question this kid before we make a move against him. Exactly how did he sneak into the ancestral shaman strange pond? Furthermore, don't you think that the number of geniuses that came out of the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond is too little? Only 4 people came out. Corpse Ian Marsh was very calm as he spoke in a deep voice. At this moment, Tu Qian, Wu Qiutong, and the other 3 returned to their teams. Soon, the news that the other geniuses had been killed by Zhuowen spread, especially when Wu Wuxian found out that Wu Wenbin and Wu Xiuran were killed by Zhuowen. She almost fainted from anger. It was the fortune of the sorcerer tribe to have 3 talented juniors. They were the future pillars of the sorcerer tribe. In the future, they would definitely be the strongest warriors in the untainted heaven realm. Wu Xingyuan, in particular, had unlimited potential. It would not be a problem for him to reach the height of the sorcerer tribe's sacred leader in the future. However, now that the 3 geniuses of the sorcerer tribe had been killed by Long, when Wu Wuxian was so angry that her liver hurt, she could not wait to kill Longwen. Not only Wu Wuxian, but the leaders of the Black Tiger tribe, the Dragon tribe, and the Phoenix people were also shocked and furious when they found out that the geniuses of their tribes had been killed by Longwen in the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond. Ah, Longwen, you bastard! How dare you kill the genius of our tribe? Fong Bumming. Today, we, the Phoenix people, will not rest until you die. Fong, Lilua roared furiously. After Fong, Lilua spoke, the leader of the Merman tribe, Yongshi, the leader of the Dragon tribe, Zonglong, and the leader of the Black Tiger tribe, Pusha, also spoke one after another. They vowed to crush Long, Wen's bones and scatter his ashes. The commotion in the inner city was too great. Not only the disciples of the sorcerer tribe in the inner city, but many of the foreign tribes in the outer city also looked in the direction of the inner city. The scene of Zhuowen crushing Wu Xingyuan in midair was witnessed by most of the experts of the foreign tribes. Oh my God, who is that guy? I think he just killed the top genius of the sorcerer tribe. Wu Xingyuan? Am I seeing things? You're not seeing things. That guy really did kill Wu Xingyuan. I remember this guy. His name is Longwen. He's a genius from a small tribe that participated in the Sorcerer's Song gathering. Are you kidding me? A genius from a small tribe can kill Wu Xingyuan. This is unbelievable. The entire Sorcerer God City was in an uproar. However, Zhuowen, who was floating in midair, soon landed on the ground. The experts of the foreign tribes in the outer city could not see what happened next. They were in an uproar and wanted to enter the inner city to take a look. Unfortunately, the inner city was surrounded by a powerful forbidding force, and they could not enter. Wu Wuxian stared coldly at Zhuowen, who had landed on the ground. He suppressed his anger and said, "Longwen, speak. How did you sneak into the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond? Also, why did you kill Wu Xingyuan and the other geniuses for no reason? Now, give me an explanation, and I'll give you a quick death." Zhuowen looked at Wu Wuxian with a strange look and asked, "High Priest, have you not opened the seal on the surface of the spirit ring I gave you during this time?" Wu Wuxian was stunned and had a bad feeling. He said coldly, "I really didn't expect that your array Dao level would be so good. You can set up such a troublesome forbidding force on the surface of the spiritual ring. I really haven't been able to crack it." "Haha, since you haven't cracked it, you don't have to waste your effort. The spiritual ring is empty. There's nothing in it. Also, how did I sneak into the ancestral sorcerer magical pond? Don't you have any idea?" Zhuowen said with a faint smile. Wu Wuxian's expression changed slightly. She immediately thought of the green-haired mummy. "Did that senior let you in?" Wu Wuxian said with some fear. "What else? How do you think I got in?" Zhuowen made up a story. What he said was completely made up on the spot. His entry into the ancestral sorcerer magical pond had nothing to do with the green-haired mummy, but now he needed to take advantage of the situation. Moreover, Zhuowen knew that the green-haired mummy seemed to have been in seclusion for the past few days through his human body. He put all the blame on the green-haired mummy. For a while, even Wu Wuxian could not prove it, which bought him a lot of time. The reason why he said this was mainly because he was afraid of the green-haired mummy and the sorcerer tribe's Saint Master. If not for these two, Zhuowen would have already caused a ruckus in the sorcerer tribe's main hall. After his Panga's sacred body reached the 8 stars, his strength was very strong. He was sure that his current battle strength could completely destroy a Master of Heaven's Passage. He could even fight a Master of Heaven's Passage, like the sorcerer tribe's Saint Master. Chapter 3372. Beating someone at their own game. What's your relationship with that senior? Wu Wuxian asked fearfully. You don't need to know my relationship with him. All you need to know is that if you kill me, you'll die, Zhuowen said indifferently. Wu Wuxian's eyes darkened. She took out a communication talisman and sent a message to the sorcerer tribe's holy leader. She wanted the sorcerer tribe's holy leader to ask about the relationship between the dragon rune and the green-furred mummy. However, what she received was that the green-furred mummy was in seclusion, and no one was allowed to disturb him. Wu Wuxian was helpless. She told the sorcerer tribe's holy leader about the situation here. The holy leader replied that he would come over immediately and did not send any more messages. At this moment, the inner city's array had been activated, and the sorcerer tribe experts had surrounded the guarded ground. They all looked at Zhuowen with unfriendly gazes. Zhuowen was not in a hurry. He knew that Wu Wuxian must have informed the sorcerer tribe's holy leader. However, he was not worried. The sorcerer tribe's holy leader was wary of the green-furred mummy. As long as he knew that Su Mo was related to the green-furred mummy, he would not casually attack Su Mo. Although Su Mo's relationship with the green-furred mummy was not friendly, they were enemies. However, the sorcerer tribe's holy leader did not know what their relationship was. He only knew that Su Mo knew the green-furred mummy. As long as the sorcerer tribe's holy leader knew this, he would not act rashly and attack Su Mo Deng. Deng, Deng. The stalemate did not last for long. The doors of the sorcerer tribe's main hall opened once again, and a majestic figure slowly walked out. This was a middle-aged man with sharp eyes like a falcon. He was muscular and his skin was deep purple. The purple robe he wore complemented his skin perfectly. This man was the current leader of the sorcerer tribe, the sorcerer tribe's holy leader, Wu Xinya. When Wu Xinya appeared, all the foreign races in the square lowered their heads and looked in his direction with respect. Zhuowen also raised his head and looked at Wu Xinya. This was not the first time he had seen Wu Xinya. Back in the sorcerer tribe's main hall, he had seen him once. Wu Xinya's aura was very terrifying. He had heard from the green-haired corpse that Wu Xinya's cultivation should have reached the peak of the Tongtian Lord realm. However, compared to a half-step heaven-crushing cultivator, he was still trash. Otherwise, Wu Xinya would not have acted so respectfully in front of the green-haired corpse back in the sorcerer tribe's great hall. Lord, holy Lord! With Wu Xinya's arrival, Wu Wuxian quickly lowered his head. Corpse Yinhu and the others also became very obedient and didn't dare to say a word. Wu Xinya nodded slightly before he glanced at Zhuowen with a strange look in his eyes. You're called Longwen, right? I clearly remember that you were still in the main hall of the sorcerer tribe. When did you enter the space of the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond? With my insignificant abilities, it is naturally impossible for me to enter the space of the wizard's magical pond. But there are people who have the ability to do so. Could it be that the sacred lord didn't think of this? Holy Lord, you don't have to think about forcing me to stay. The reason I came out was because that lord let me leave. My purpose in entering the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond was also that lord's idea. I'm sure you know that, Holy Lord? Zhuowen spoke nonsense without a trace of embarrassment. He was already prepared for a big battle with the sorcerer tribe, so he spoke without any scruples. At most, he would fight. However, Zhuowen's words caused Wu Xinya's pupils to shrink. He sized up Longwen and revealed a thoughtful expression. He thought to himself, that lord came for the 3 ancestral sorcerer corpses. Coincidentally, this child was also sent into the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond. Could it be that what this child said was true? That lord was worried about me and allowed this child to enter the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond to observe? Wu Xinya couldn't make up his mind. When the green-haired corpse took Zhuowen away, he already felt that this child had a deep relationship with the corpse. Now, this feeling was even stronger. Holy Lord, this child is unfilial. He killed Wu Xingyuan, Wu Xiran, and Wu Wenbin. He is unscrupulous and unrestrained. This child should be killed. Wu Wuxian said anxiously when he saw Wu Xinya's hesitant expression. Corpse Ma and the others also tried to persuade him. They listed out all the evidence of Zhuowen's crimes. They believed that Wen's crimes were too numerous to be recorded. His crimes were unforgivable. Zhuowen silently looked at the people who were trying to persuade Wu Xinya to kill him. His heart was filled with a cold smile. If it wasn't for the green-haired corpse, he would have already caused a ruckus and killed all these people who had ulterior motives. However, he didn't do so now. He wanted to leave this place as soon as possible. If he had the chance in the future, he would visit the nests of these races and teach them a lesson. All right, you don't need to say anything. I have my own decision. Wu Xinya spoke. Everyone was silent, and no one dared to make a sound. Longwen, since you have some relationship with that senior, I won't make things difficult for you. However, you still killed 3 of my sorcerer tribe's geniuses. You have to give me an explanation for this. Wu Xinya glared at Zhuowen with an unfriendly gaze. This is easy. That senior already guessed that I might not hold back. He warned me that if I made a huge mistake, he would be responsible for compensation. He will guide you to break through your current shackles and step into the half-step heaven-crushing realm. I wonder if Holy Lord will accept this compensation. Zhuowen began to talk nonsense. Moreover, He could tell from Wu Xinya's expression that the green-haired corpse had come to the sorcerer tribe with a purpose. He could guess that the green-haired corpse had come from the 3 ancestral sorcerer corpses in the ancestral sorcerer mystical pond. However, he found it strange. With the green-haired corpse's strength, it could have just taken the corpses by force. Why did it have to wait there? Wu Xinya's pupils shrank. His breathing immediately quickened as he asked, "Are you serious? In any case, this senior personally told me this. Do you think it's true or not? He doesn't make promises easily. Once he does, it must be something he's confident in. It can't be fake." Shuowen said seriously, "Ha ha. Young Master Long, I misunderstood you before. This is the highest grade token in Sorcerer God City. Those who possess this token have the right to freely enter and exit Sorcerer God City. From now on, this token belongs to you." Wu Xinya was in a good mood. He tossed the token to Zhuowen with an extremely excited expression. Although he had lost 3 monstrous geniuses, he felt that he had not lost out in exchange for a chance to break through. Instead, he had profited from this transaction. Zhuowen caught Wu Xinya's token and lightly sighed in his heart. He cupped his hands at Wu Xinya and said, "Since it's like this, I'll take my leave first. There are many locusts here that annoy me. I can't stay here any longer." After saying this, Zhuowen straightforwardly left the inner city. With this token, he was not stopped from leaving the inner city. Wu Wuxian, Shi Yinzhou, and the others' expressions changed greatly. They hurriedly advised Wu Xinya not to be so impulsive. They also listed Long Wen's various crimes and dangers. Wu Xinya sneered and said, "Do you think I don't know? This kid didn't speak the truth just now. I'm just beating him at his own game." Chapter 3373. Encirclement and Suppression. Holy Lord, what do you mean? Wu Wuxian asked suspiciously. "What I am not sure of is the relationship between this child and that senior. If what he said is true, then this child's relationship with that senior is not shallow. If we capture this child, won't we be offending that senior?" Wu Xinya said indifferently. Wu Wuxian frowned and said, "Holy Lord, even if that is the case, you should not have given such an important token to Long Wen. Isn't that giving Long Wen the right to leave Sorcerer God City at any time? He won't be able to escape. That token has a special tracking aura. Apart from me, no one can sense that aura. No matter where Long Wen escapes, I will be able to pinpoint his location." Wu Xinya's eyes were filled with confidence. He took out a shining jade strip and handed it to Wu Wuxian. "Grand Priest, through this jade strip, you will be able to sense Long Wen's location at any time. As long as you discover that Long Wen has left Sorcerer God City, arrange for people to kill him. As long as he does not die in Sorcerer God City, even if that senior has a close relationship with this child, it will not be our fault." Wu Wuxian took the jade strip. Her beautiful eyes were filled with killing intent. She had wanted to kill Long Wen for a long time. If she was not afraid of the green-furred corpse, she would have done it long ago. Now that she had received Wu Xinya's advice, she knew what to do. After Wu Xinya returned to the sorcerer tribe's main hall, Wu Wuxian began to secretly send a message to Corpse Yinhu and the other tribe leaders. "This Long Wen is not simple. We need to temporarily reach an agreement and work together to capture this Long Wen. As for this child's secret, we can discuss it after we capture him," Corpse Yinhu suggested. Corpse Yinhu's suggestion was approved by the other tribe leaders. They all felt that it was very reasonable. After Zhuowen left the inner city, he quickly flew towards the inn that he had booked. His expression became more and more serious. The token that Wu Xinya had given him was indeed very useful. However, Zhuowen's heart grew heavier because he felt that Wu Xinya was too easy to trick. How could he have believed him so easily? He had also used his divine sense to check the token that Wu Xinya had given him. However, he did not find anything out of the ordinary. However, he still felt uneasy, so he planned to put away the array around the inn and leave Sorcerer God City immediately. After Zhuowen returned to the inn, his original human body was trapped on a giant stone pillar in a room deep in the Sorcerer Tribe's palace. The eyes of the main body of the human race flickered, and he muttered in a low voice, "Looks like my avatar has already succeeded. It's time for me to leave." As he said that, the true body of the human race opened up his right palm. On his palm, there was a complicated diagram of a formation. This array pattern was the temporary teleportation array that Zhuowen had prepared long ago. The light from the array on his palm grew brighter and brighter until it was as bright as the sun. Then, Zhuowen's entire body emitted a dazzling light. Not long after, Zhuowen's entire body turned into fine specks of light and exploded, disappearing from the room. Not long after the true body of the human race left, the bookshelf deep in the room slowly opened. Behind the bookshelf, there was a deep secret passage. A skinny figure slowly walked out from the secret passage. It was the green-haired mummy. After the green-haired mummy walked out of the secret passage, he immediately felt that something was wrong. He looked at the stone pillar that Zhuowen had been trapped on and frowned. This was because Zhuowen had disappeared. This Zhuowen was actually able to escape from my energy. He's not simple. The green-haired mummy squinted his eyes and muttered to himself. The green-haired mummy did not reveal any expression of shock or anger. Instead, he was rather calm, as if he was not particularly concerned about Zhuowen's escape. He took out a communication talisman and called for the holy leader of the Sorcerer Tribe. "Senior, you've come out of seclusion?" The holy leader of the Sorcerer Tribe, Wu Xinya, said respectfully the moment he entered the room. "Yes, I've just come out of seclusion. The Sorcerer's Song gathering should have ended. Now, you should bring me into the Ancestral Sorcerer's magical pond to take a look." The green-haired mummy said indifferently. Wu Xinya revealed a bitter smile. He knew that the result that he did not want the most had finally come. It has indeed ended. Wu Xinya braced himself and said, "If that's the case, then lead the way." The green-haired mummy said straightforwardly. Wu Xinya sighed and could only bring the green-haired mummy out of the Sorcerer Tribe's main hall. After walking out of the main hall, Wu Xinya suddenly said, "Senior, did you send Long Wen into the Ancestral Sorcerer's magical pond to investigate the situation?" The green-haired mummy was stunned and said strangely, "During this period of time, I've been in seclusion. How could I send Long Wen into the Ancestral Sorcerer's magical pond? Moreover, why would I send him in?" Thinking of this, the green-haired mummy's gaze became serious. He said coldly, "You mean that Long Wen entered the Ancestral Sorcerer's magical pond before?" Wu Xinya nodded and said, "Yes, Long Wen also said that you sent him in. Moreover, he said that you have a close relationship with him." Wu Xinya's expression turned ugly. He had already guessed that Long Wen was lying through his teeth and deceiving him. "Open the Ancestral Sorcerer's magical pond. I want to go in and take a look at the 3 ancestral sorcerer corpses." The green-haired mummy said gloomily. Wu Xinya felt the terrifying aura from the green-haired mummy and did not dare to be careless. He waved his sleeve and opened a path to the Ancestral Sorcerer's magical pond. The green-haired mummy quickly entered, with Wu Xinya following closely behind. However, before Wu Xinya entered the Ancestral Sorcerer's magical pond, he sent a message to the high priest regarding Long Wen. At the same time that the green-haired mummy and Wu Xinya entered the Ancestral Sorcerer's magical pond, the light of a teleportation formation appeared in a room in the inn. Zhuowen's main body was enveloped by the light and slowly appeared in the room. The main body opened its eyes and immediately noticed the black-clothed doppelganger that was already in the room. "We should go." After saying this, the doppelganger returned to the main body's great world. However, just as he was about to leave the inn, the entire inn shook violently as if the sky was falling and the earth was splitting. When he stepped out of the inn's door, he immediately saw several patriarchs led by Corpse Marsh. They were actually working together to attack the formation that he had set up around the inn. Apart from the Corpse Ghoul race's patriarch Corpse Marsh, there was also the Dragon race's patriarch Zhong Long, the Black Tiger race's patriarch Hu Sha, the Merman race's patriarch Yongshi, the Phoenix people's patriarch Feng Lilua, and many other experts from the 5 great races. Apart from that, Zhuowen also saw dozens of patriarchs assisting Corpse Marsh and the others in attacking the inn. Chapter 3374. Peerless Killing Formation emerges. Zhuowen had only activated a heaven-piercing formation around the inn, and it was a defensive formation, the Green Garden Jade Formation. Under the combined attacks of so many heaven-piercing masters, it was on the verge of collapsing, as if it would collapse at any moment. Zhuowen raised his head and looked at the Grand Priest, Wu Wuxian, who was hovering in the air and silently observing the situation. He took out the badge that Wu Xinya had given him and said in a deep voice, "Grand Priest, what is the meaning of this?" The sacred leader of the sorcerer tribe has already promised that he will not attack me. You are going against the will of the sacred leader of the sorcerer tribe. Wu Wuxian laughed coldly and said, "Long One, you are very smart. You know how to take advantage of the situation and forcefully establish a relationship with that senior. However, a fake will always be a fake. That senior has already come out of seclusion and denied the relationship you mentioned. Now, the sacred leader has given the order to kill a traitor like you. Ha! Long One, those who are unjust are doomed to destruction. Today you are dead for sure. There is no need to struggle. Remove this formation and come out to die. You will suffer less." Corpse Marsh laughed sinisterly. "Hee, Brother Marsh, you are too kind. Even though this formation is quite powerful, it won't be able to last for long under our joint efforts. Break through this formation and tear this bastard apart. Of course, I won't destroy his soul so quickly. I will make him suffer endless suffering and never be able to reincarnate." Feng Lilua said with a savage expression. The other patriarchs also spoke ruthlessly, thinking that they had Zhuowen in the bag. Zhuowen silently looked at the group of Empyrean sovereigns spouting obscenities without batting an eyelid. He looked at the badge in his hand and ignited a terrifying flame in his right hand, destroying the badge. He said indifferently, "Break this formation, and it will be the time of your death. If you do not want to die, or if you are unrelated, you should back off. Otherwise, it will be too late for regrets." Zhuowen's words sounded like a warning, but they immediately caused mocking laughter. The Almighties who had joined forces to attack Zhuowen all laughed. The more they looked down on Zhuowen, the more they felt that Zhuowen was a coward who was afraid of death, stubborn and prideful. The huge commotion had attracted the attention of all the outsiders in Shaman God City. One by one, figures began to gather in this direction. When they saw the patriarchs of the large clans and the 5 patriarchs of the 10 great clans led by Corpse Marsh, they were all shocked. So many earthly divine realm experts had joined forces to attack an ordinary-looking inn. Were they crazy? Or was there something incredible in that inn? They also discovered that the experts of the sorcerer tribe were also participating in this alliance. The high priest of the sorcerer tribe, Wu Wuxian, was floating not far away, quietly watching the scene without any intention of interfering. They knew that the sorcerer tribe had tacitly approved of this action. At the same time, They were curious about who had caused such a huge uproar and caused so many earthly divine realm experts to surround and attack him. This was the first time in the history of the Eldritch territory. I heard that it was Long One, a genius from a small clan. He killed 3 sorcerer tribe geniuses, including Wu Xingyuan, in the space of the sorcerer's magical pond. He also killed Feng Bumming of the Phoenix people, Long Hui of the Dragon tribe, and Hu Tung of the Black Tiger tribe. That's why everyone is angry. It's Long One. I've heard of him before. His name has spread throughout Shaman God City. This guy killed the #1 genius of the corpse ghost tribe, Shi Fu, at the Sorcerer's Song gathering. How dare he? I remember that he was captured by the Sorcerer tribe and brought back to the main hall of the Sorcerer tribe. How could he enter the Sorcerer's magical pond? How strange. All the outsiders were discussing. Most of them shook their heads and sighed. They felt that Long One was doomed. With so many omnipotent beings joining forces, even a top omnipotent being at the peak of the omnipotent being realm might not be able to withstand them. Long One was just a genius from a small clan. How could he be a match for so many omnipotent beings? The teams that did not participate in the encirclement of the Moonwolf tribe, the Nine-Tailed Fox tribe, the Giant Turtle tribe, and the Space-Time Beast tribe stood far away and watched the shocking scene in silence. Long One is doomed. I didn't expect that he would attract so many omnipotent beings to attack him. They think too highly of him. Tu Qian found it unbelievable. I didn't expect that country bumpkin to be so strong that he would attract so many experts to attack him. Qian Ping, who was standing beside Tu Qian, was stunned. She realized that Long One was unfathomable. She had misjudged him. However, she sighed in her heart. She knew that Long One would not be able to survive. This was a horrifying situation where there was no chance of survival. The Moonwolf tribe leader, Itaiha, frowned. He felt that it was too much for so many experts to attack him. However, he did not dare to speak up for Zhuowen. If he spoke up, the Moonwolf tribe would be finished. This guy is more talented than Wu Xingyuan. It's a pity that he is going to die here. What a pity! Wu Qiutong sighed. Ever since Wu Xingyuan was defeated by Zhuowen, her view of Zhuowen had changed completely. She even had a strange feeling in her heart. She was born in a large clan and had an obsession with the strong. The strongest person in the younger generation had always been the most suitable candidate to be her cultivation partner. Wu Xingyuan was like that back then, and Zhuowen was like that now. She admired the strong and disdained the weak. Many of the foreign tribes that were watching had the same thought. They felt that it was a pity that a peerless genius like Zhuowen had fallen. Crack! Suddenly, the green garden jade array that was set up around the inn was broken. Dozens of omnipotent beings who were attacking the array rushed in and entered the inn. At the same time, terrifying attacks rained down on Zhuowen's body like dazzling fireworks. They exploded with terrifying light and looked extremely terrifying. One of the omnipotent beings was the first to arrive at the battlefield where Zhuowen was. He saw the figure that was enveloped and knew that he was not completely dead yet. He reached out with his right hand, wanting to grab Zhuowen. However, the moment his right hand reached out, he was greeted by a huge fist. Then, this early-stage omnipotent being's right hand exploded into a bloody mist. This early-stage omnipotent being screamed and hurriedly retreated. Unfortunately, Zhuowen was much faster than him. He rushed out of the explosion and quickly arrived in front of this early-stage omnipotent being. He grabbed this early-stage omnipotent being by the neck. Crack! Zhuowen did not hesitate to break this early-stage omnipotent being's neck. Terrifying energy exploded, and this early-stage omnipotent being's head exploded. His soul was destroyed, and he was casually thrown to the ground by Zhuowen. At the same time, Zhuowen took out a formation flag and threw it out. Instantly, the surrounding scenery changed, and a peerless killing intent surged from the surroundings.